That's right. Yeah, we're always on time.
Why did no one say anything?
I did.
Yeah, Andrew did.
Yeah.
Okay. Crap.
Let us know how the audio is, guys. Wow, heart you. Yeah, we'll give you a refund. $0. Right,
sorry, bud. Okay. Who's in chat? All right. Oh, Rob Hawk. Love
dude.
it.
Okay,
Wait,
I just have to give a shout out to the best comment. The listener in the thumbnail is definitely made of wax, whereas the headphones themselves look real. Blaine did a great job on the sculpture, but it has not moved. But it has not moved since you put it up.
You know, to think of Blaine lovingly sculpting me out of wax, it's just not a realistic scenario. Like, he would not put in the time for that. Anyway, what's up, chat? How are we doing?
I'm just posting the things in the social medias.
Oh yeah,
can you hit this?
I gotta get the bingo.
Man, those are really his teeth, but the rest is wax. Oh my god.
I'm just waiting for the rest of our audience to get on Rob Hawk's level.
Exactly. All right.
When can we expect a review of Steve Geek's headphones? He's given them to me at SoCal, so hopefully we'll be able to share some. Unironically, he posted measurements of them. They measure better than Grados do.
I mean, that's not hard though. Like that is
no, but it's just
low
amazing.
bar. But
yeah. you could literally throw a driver at a headphone measurement rig, and it would probably measure better than Grados.
I don't know about that.
Just
the Grados are at least coupling.
Are they though?
Yeah, fairly.
They're smushing, if anything.
Snuggly. Smushing counts. Smushing absolutely counts as coupling.
Okay. We have a show for you guys today, as usual. Hello, everyone. Or as Alan would say, hello. We have to. I love
Alan.
Yeah. We have a show for you today, and presumably Blaine is not with us today. He needs to take a nap, so that's what he's doing. That was more important than joining the stream. Actually, it makes sense. You know, I think it's more important too. As usual, we have noise floor bingo for folks who want to play along. If anybody gets bingo, we end the stream. That's how that works. Doing everybody a favor.
Never how it's worked, but okay.
It doesn't matter. I'm saying it anyways. A couple of items of housekeeping. Of course, all of this is brought to you by headphones.com. If you want to support what we're doing here, if you like what we're doing, consider headphones.com for your next audio purchase. We have all kinds of things that you could potentially buy, and that all supports what we do here. It makes all of this possible and makes it so we can eat, which is nice. Makes it so Blaine can nap.
Yes.
I have, of course, with me the others of us who hate fun. I have Cameron and Griffin, Fun Haters Anonymous.
I don't like this. I don't like that.
I like it.
I love fun.
Okay.
Cameron loves fun too.
Just because you're not as cynical as the rest of us.
Yes, isn't that the criteria?
Yeah, I suppose. There's a bit of housekeeping that I have to get through here before we start into today's topic or topics. One is that folks seem to maybe get the wrong idea for what these live stream podcasts are. There's a lot of folks who seem to like the idea of what the topics are that we put forward, but don't want to sit through several hours worth on the subject in this sort of live format, and I get that. But I want to I think there's some confusion around like how we go about doing this. So for folks who are unaware, who maybe haven't watched through any of these, and I don't really blame you, the headline topics that we have here in the title of these live streams, they're not the entirety of the stream. They occupy really like 20 to 30 minutes, sometimes sometimes up to an hour, but never really more than that. They occupy a portion of the stream. And the rest of it, we have these other segments that we go through where we do different activities, different things. You know, we have spicy hour at the end. And for those who've been with us for a while, you guys know how this sort of works. But for anybody new, you know, that might not be obvious. So what we do is we have these cards below our smiling faces here, or scowling faces in my case. We have these cards that indicate which portion of the stream we're on. And so if you're watching this after the fact, you can just look at the card, skip ahead to whatever the headline topic is here that you might be interested in, if that's something that you want to watch, and just watch that portion. And then, you know, you don't need to watch the rest. It's really just to make it easier for folks to kind of navigate through. So just rest assured, these are not like multi-hour long streams on the same topic. The second thing I wanted to acknowledge is that, you know, folks seem to want like a clips segment from these streams to, you know, get the gist, because again, nobody has 3 hours to sit through this. Well, presumably some people do. The dedicated folks do. You know who you are. But not everybody does. And it would be great if we could do a clips type thing where we can just edit these together into more bite-sized chunks. I would love to be able to do that, but right now we just don't have the resources on deck to do it. Because we have to pay somebody to do it, essentially, right? And I'm looking to try and find ways of doing this, but we just don't have the resources at the moment to do that. And the last thing I wanted to mention is to talk a little bit about what these stream podcast segments are for. So when we're producing videos and we're making content on the channel, we're doing this to try and like make things as accessible as possible, because a lot of these topics can get really dense and really deep and technical, and it's not something I think we really expect people to understand, you know, or even, you know, care about, maybe to the degree that we do. And so we try and make our regular videos a lot more accessible than the kinds of things that we end up talking about here. And this stream concept, I mean, it was always just a way for us to be able to kind of just talk about things a bit more unfiltered, a bit more just how we would want to engage with one another. And while we do have to make things, you know, more accessible generally, this was maybe a place for us to, you know, have some of those more deep dive, just unhinged technical, you know, discussions about things where, you know, we bring in people who are, like, for example, Blaine is one of the most knowledgeable people on audio, period. And, you know, to sort of be able to pick his brain about this stuff in this sort of format where we don't need to consider maybe the reach of the content, right? Where we can just have these conversations. That's really what this was for, right? We want to just be able to kind of speak our minds, talk however we want to talk, and not have to think too much about like whether we're playing an algorithm game, whether we're, you know, like hitting whatever metrics or anything like that. We just want to, you know, have conversations about this stuff with people who are like, you know, deeply knowledgeable. And so, you know, that's why we have people like Blaine who are, you know, go on his rants about things, or, you know, Cameron will talk about source gear, or, you know, and Griffin's extremely well read on, you know, all the research and all this stuff. So like, despite the fact that, you know, we may all disagree in terms of like which headphones are good or what products are good or whatever, right? Like we do all genuinely care about this topic very deeply. And so I just want to stress for folks, that's really what this is for. That's why we're doing this. And this might not be the type of content that everybody likes. It might not be for everybody, but this is in a way for us. So I hope
this is where we get to nerd out for a few hours and go really in depth on stuff. It's not targeted at the general person that doesn't want to, you know, sit for hours listening to these kind of topics. Our main videos, we put quite a lot of effort into trying to make them, you know, palatable and entertaining and sort of not bite-sized, but, you know,
they're like 20-minute pieces at most.
Digestible.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas here, as I said, this is where we get to nerd out about stuff, and if you want to come along with it, that's great. But if it's not your thing, that's totally okay. This isn't meant to be the same as everything else on the channel, because if it would be, then there wouldn't be a point in doing it in the first place.
Yeah. So I hope you guys will be able to indulge us, even if you don't sit for the whole thing. I understand that's totally fine, but make use of the cards below that Griffin will throw up. For
Once we get
I
into
do have
it,
an
yeah.
idea on how to improve the cards for the future. I think rather than just having the thing that we're currently doing, we should have like all of them and just highlight the one that we're currently on,
that's
so
a
people
great idea.
realize there's more.
Oh, that's a great idea.
That's probably
Love it.
That's a great idea.
Make
Yeah,
it a little-
I'll suss that out next time for sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
But also, I do want to say that, like, as I think the only person here who like started the headphones.com live streams as a viewer and then eventually got downgraded to a participant. Yeah, I always loved the streams that you guys did, like even back when it was like Audiophiles Anonymous with like Tyler and like Metal showing up occasionally, and obviously Blaine showing up that one time.
We had Constantine, Oratory 1990.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, and Kryn.
Yeah, Kryn, yeah, for sure.
Like, I don't know, as I'm not necessarily the like stereotypical person who likes long form content, but like on a weekend when I'm just chilling, maybe doing my little projects and thinking about stuff, I like listening to some headphone nerds talk about some stuff.
That's what this is.
If you're sitting watching the screen, listening intently to everything that's being said, you may need help. But if you're doing dishes, getting some stuff done, driving, whatever, and listening to us chat, then that's kind of what this is aimed at.
And
it's
on that
a podcast. It's not meant to be a movie.
Yeah. This is also available in podcast form. I always mention this at the end of the streams for some reason, but I'm going to do it at the beginning. But this is available on podcast, on like streaming platforms like Spotify and I believe Amazon, a bunch of streaming platforms that have podcasts available. So you don't need to look at us, and that's probably an upgrade. The last thing I just want to mention is that the topics that we cover here, they're pulled from the forum thread, so I believe that's linked in the description. If you guys want to contribute, please do, because we are somewhat running dry. Definitely add your topics to that forum thread so that we can pull them and then basically discuss them here. So with that out of the way, let's dive into topic number 1, which is our main topic of the week, which is what are the headphones that everyone should hear? And this isn't necessarily what everyone should own. It's what everyone should try. Griffin, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so the thumbnail kind of, I just kind of put together which headphones I have around that I think kind of fit that mold. But I actually think there's a lot of headphones that we should probably talk about, because I personally think that headphones are really cool and fun, and that people should actually
I disagree.
Listen. I think people should listen to a lot of them, like not only to get a sense of like what their own taste is, but just because it's like fun to listen to like the variety that's out there. So the first one, and this is probably gonna come as no surprise, obviously this isn't a headphone that everyone will have on their radar until they get into the audiophile space. So I think it's the first one that's probably worth hearing.
You Sennheiser shill, clearly paid by Sennheiser and Mastrop.
Look, it's a very, very good headphone that's been around for a very long time. A lot of people like it for what I deem good reasons.
Warm poo enthusiasts.
Overhyped? Sure. But man, is it solid.
Great headphone.
And I think in terms of if you've never heard any audiophile headphone and you want the first one to kind of give you a taste of like what is different about audiophile headphones versus consumer headphones, and like what kind of the benefits of that difference can really be, mostly having to do with the mid-range, it's a must listen. And it doesn't have to be this one. It could be, HG 600, HG 580 Precision. Any one of those is going to give you a good idea.
Not the 660S or 660S2. Those are very different.
Or
not correct. The 58X either.
The 600 and 650 are also just like worth listening to if for any other reason that it's a baseline that people compare things to all the time.
Even if you don't like it.
Even if you don't like it, it's worth hearing just because it's a comparison point that people make so often that it's just really handy to have that in your memory.
Absolutely. It makes participation in the discourse around other things you might not have heard easier to understand and navigate. But it's also just a good headphone lineup. So yeah, definitely going to be my like number one headphone you should hear. I'm wondering if we should just like go around each of us naming one until we've hit all of them, basically.
Okay.
You want to go next, Cam?
Do you want to go next? Okay, yeah. So I'm kind of torn. I'll go with Stax L700.
Ooh,
Stax L700 is one.
Okay, going the other direction.
And this is more sort of kind of targeted at the person who's in the hobby and has heard various headphone stuff, but hasn't heard, a proper E-stat yet. It's so different from most typical headphone tunings and does things quite so differently, yet without being, what's the best way to put it?
Normal?
Subjective. It's whilst remaining surprisingly normal. Like it's got a very different tuning approach, but it's not one where you put it on and go, what have they done? And I mean, obviously there's all the sort of subjective aspects people talk about, it's crazy detailed. The sort of just speed and detail retrieval that it has is incredible. But the presentation alone is something where a lot of people really like E-stat presentation. A lot of people really hate E-stat presentation. And for similar reasons, as I was mentioning, the HD600, it's one really worth trying to know if that tickles your fancy or not.
Yeah. And also I would say it's not like some of the other, like that line is its own, is kind of like,
yes,
iconic.
The Lambda line itself.
Yeah. And the other, like I'm thinking of like the 07s and the X9000s or whatever. They are different.
I also think that the Lambda line is like interesting in that, like, even if, like you said, you have heard like an audiophile headphone like this or like a planar or something, I just feel like the E-stat presentation is so different, both in terms of obviously what you're listening to, but also like that headphone in particular and that kind of chassis is like a very weird looking and feeling thing when it's on your head. Like it's unique. And I feel like, that's just overall an experience worth having at least once.
Right.
The main issue I've had with these stats in the past has just been that they don't do bass as well as most other headphones.
And you're a bass head, right?
I'm not a bass head, but it bothers me when there's like, a drop. I'm not Taran, but like...
but you love the Eris, right? Like the Eris was your number one.
Not
Why
so
are you
much.
doing this?
But that's the main issue with E-stats, which you can fix to some degree with EQ. But there is just something about the shape of their bass presentation where it suddenly goes chunk. Normally, not all of them. That does seem to just change things quite a bit.
Yeah, I noticed that's a common thing where they kind of they jut up and then they. That's the incurring the driver FS potentially.
Yes,
I assume that's what it is.
I think part of it's
the wrong way
to
to
do
say
with
it.
the fact that they can't, and this isn't the case for all of them, but for most of them, you can't actually have it sort of be clampy enough to get like a proper firm seal, because you might actually damage the driver. I mean, some of them are literally infamous for being so fragile that in shipping, half of them just didn't arrive working properly. And so I think that's a bit of a thing where getting a firm seal is a bit of a challenge with some of these E-stats. And you can measure some of them where they will have a more linear bass extension, but then on a real head, or if you're not, pressing it in at the same time, it's like, well,
which you
are
probably
you actually going to get that? No, because then you might damage them. So.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. My first pick is the Chadliest pick of all time. It's this.
It's a good shout.
Thankfully, most people have heard it.
From Apple. It's a company called Apple. I'm not sure if folks have heard of it. It's so with this one, what's cool about it is it's an in-ear, and with this one you don't actually need the wire. And there's also this cool thing that happens when you wear it, which is that the outside sounds that you hear kind of disappear a little bit. So it has this really cool. Okay, I'll stop.
What is this bit you're doing?
Ank.
Yeah.
So the reason why this is,
I love
it has the. So the reason why this is a product that I think everybody should hear is, and again, thankfully many people have, is that it's an indication of what good is in not just true wireless IEMs, but just sound quality in in-ears generally, right? Like, it's not perfect. There are things that I wish were different about it, particularly in the treble. I think it kind of whiffs it there a little bit, but for its mid-range balance, it's exceptional. And this is the direction that I wish that TWS products would go. Like, I just spent like a long time evaluating this Sony WF-1000 XM5 after the firmware update, and it's better than it was initially, but it's still just not as good as the AirPods Pro 2. Like, I don't own anything Apple, but the AirPods Pro 2 is the best true wireless product, period. And so for that,
and it has a proper name
for sound quality, I should say, just for sound quality, because it has issues. Like, the ANC on it is not as good as what you get with other products, and it's not as consistent either. It has some of those problems, but for the sound quality specifically, it's.
I would say the transparency mode is probably the best on that.
That is very good. Yeah, but like, taking it on I would never. I've tried taking this on a plane, and I would never do it again because it's not a good experience.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it depends. It's kind of weird. It seems to depend a little bit on where you're sitting in the plane, or like where the noise is coming from in the plane. But the ANC is inconsistent. So you'll get ANC on one side, but not on the other for some reason, or something will, be different. And so it's this really triggering thing. Some people might be fine with it, but it bothered me a lot, so I wouldn't do that again.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also, I won't say this is like exactly new meta for the tuning, but it's closer to that than it is other tunings. And for the things that new meta is sort of like categorically correct about, that being the human anatomical features of the mid-range, that's really what this does well. I think it could do with just a little more ear gain, not much.
Yeah, no, it needs less tilt overall in the mids.
Yeah, less tilt. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, to speak the Crin language. But that's my pick for things people should hear.
Just on a slight tangent related to that, why does Sony not just give their products actual names? Why do they like take random Windows license keys they had lying around and use those as product names? It's just, even as someone who's into this, I can never remember which one is which. If someone gives me a model name, I have to specifically Google it every single time.
That's really funny.
Turn listener red.
It's so true, though. It's so true.
Yeah, it's like,
it's a really good analogy.
You know, and like that's the front. So like, okay, I might do like a video where it's like this and like comparing TWS, right? I'm not sure what the like current hot ones are because I got Sam's
it's the same big Buds. 3.
Yeah, basically. Does Bose do like a really popular one as well? I know they do the over-ear.
I don't know if it's popular, but I think it might be worth including because they have a novel technology implementation akin to what Apple's doing.
There you go. So
at CanJam, we should do a video where we go up to people and we have like 3 or 4 different product names from Sony's headphone lineup and ask them if they can tell us what any of them are, and also throw in the first bit of a Windows license key and see if anyone notices that shouldn't be in there. I genuinely don't think most people, almost anyone, would be able to actually go, oh, that's the IEM one, that's the over-ear one.
I would. I think people. I think so. It's not that hard.
I think unfortunately we're brainwormed enough that like
but you get the like
we can read the hieroglyphics if that makes sense.
I don't know. I think they're so ubiquitous that people understand the naming convention to a certain extent. Like it's actually a good product for its other aspects. The comfort is better. The ANC is better. Though the form factor is great.
Do you think the passive isolation on them is better than AirPods Pro 2? Because I think the passive isolation on AirPods Pro 2 is not great.
Yeah, I haven't really tested that, but overall, I find it to be a more useful product for the features, the ANC stuff, and also it integrates better with because I don't use Apple, right? So
yeah,
it has customizability functions in an app. It's just that you can't fix the things that you need to fix with the sound quality. That's an annoyance. But then also like, it is also just a little bit cumbersome to use an app too. So I get the benefits of the APP2 there. But one thing that's cool about this that I didn't realize until I started doing this testing, and I know this is a tangent, but the when you have one earbud in, just one, it pumps both channels through that one earbud. So you can actually share them with somebody else and still get both channels.
It's a cool
At first,
feature.
I was
Yeah, when you
annoyed by
told me
that.
about that,
Like,
I was like, that's
Yeah.
actually really smart.
yeah, it's brilliant because now you can be sitting on a train or a bus or whatever, and you can just like have, with whoever you're maybe traveling with, you can have them listen to the same thing that you're listening to, and you both get the same get both channels of whatever it is. So that's cool. Anyway, that's a tangent. Griffin, what's your next one?
So a lot of my closer friends were surprised when they saw the thumbnail for this video because they weren't expecting me to be holding up one of these.
Yeah, because it doesn't fit
But
you.
no, it fits me fine.
Oh,
I mean, it's
I
like
thought you hated the comfort.
it's like it's. I don't like the top band. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not plush
So you Capra
enough. It's
strap
very
it.
stiff. So I would if I had one.
Capra,
because
Capra, what are you doing? The man needs Capra straps.
Dude has sent me enough stuff. We'll talk about Capra later.
He
in the
needs to
video.
cover his entire body in Capra straps, and then do like an American Beauty kind of,
Oh
instead
my
of
god.
roses.
Okay.
It's Capra
Anyway,
strap.
but no, so when we thought about the idea for this video, I obviously looked around at what I actually had and was able to make a thumbnail out of, and I saw this and I realized like when the HE1000 V1 came out, like obviously it was kind of like a new design. Like there was nothing like with this kind of like super large diaphragm, very open, not completely like leather pads, like minimal damping. So like obviously you get driver modes, but you also get like a very low resonance frequency. And I was thinking,
Well,
like,
you get the low resonance frequency regardless. It's just that because it's huge, but you just wouldn't necessarily incur it when you decouple it.
Yes. But I was thinking like HE1000 V1 was probably like what, like $3,000 or something when it came out.
Yeah, at least.
This is literally a tenth. This is a tenth of that. And I feel like in terms of the things it does well, it does basically all the same things well that the HE1000 and Aria line do. But it's so insanely affordable that for that kind of presentation, like if you want to buy a planar and see like what the kind of stereotypical planar presentation is, like this is absolutely where you should go for it. Now, I'm not a fan of that presentation at all. And like I use this like maybe like a few times for a review, and then like it's just been sitting in the box until the thumbnail was needed. But like that's just because it's not my thing. But I think everyone should hear this at least once, or really any variant of it, because they are quite similar.
Say like an Aria now as well, because they're really cheap too.
That's the thing. Like, so the thing is, I'm saying this instead of Sundara, and it's not just because I have this and not a Sundara.
That's
Sundara kind of hits like
other,
yeah. It's, I don't know. Sundara kind of lives on its own island, if that makes sense. It's like really not like anything else in their lineup where, they were very clearly going for like a more normal mid-range presentation. But like
that's because there's a gap in the baffle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why it is. I've not spent much time with the Sundara at all. I actually don't even know if I've heard the 2020 version. Okay. But just like for the thing people talk about when they talk about like a Hi-Fi Man presentation, like this is emblematic of that, and it's so affordable, and you could find it like at basically any store that sells audiophile headphones. That it's like
I would choose that over a Sundara, personally.
In current year, I probably would too because of the things I mentioned with the low driver resonance frequency and the like larger cups.
Yeah, as a platform.
So really, anything like that. Would do fine, but I highly recommend people listen to one at least once because you never know. Like that might be your jam.
Cameron?
Next one I think is going to be try one of the kind of like proper flagship ones, and this could kind of apply to various different ones. I would say something
ones
like
of these,
Sesvara,
or just okay.
No, like just generally speaking, I would say something like a Sesvara. Yep.
So
because
pretty.
that way a lot of people may, have tried various bits and bobs at sort of the more affordable price ranges and stuff, and be wondering how much better it gets when you spend more or whatever. And I think the answer is that the improvements may be a lot less than what some people are expecting. And so having a bit more of a sort of realistic expectation of where the general top end is probably a good idea, because then it helps you to more accurately go, okay, I don't actually need to spend that much. It's not going to change my life. Or, for some people they go, no, that is worth a difference for me. It helps put the entire range into perspective a bit more. And it's just a good experience. The Susvara is a great headphone. So yeah, I would say probably a Susvara or other top-end headphone, but Susvara is one which I would consider to be probably one of the best, well-rounded, and least likely to be off-putting just because of tonal colorations and stuff. I mean, 1266 is great fun to try as well, but it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea.
Sure.
It's not mine.
Nor
So
mine.
my next pick is also going to be a Mega Chad pick, and I don't recommend this because I'm not saying people should hear this because it's good. I'm saying people should hear this so that they understand. Okay. It's the Biodynamic DT990 Pro.
No, it's
That's
a
a good one.
legitimate good
250
pick.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
and here's the thing, right? Based on how we know that this performs on different heads, there is a chance that it could work for somebody, and somebody wouldn't have the horrible treble peaks that this exhibits when measured on rigs. Unfortunately, I get the treble peaks, and they're horrible, and I would never choose to use this. Like, it's intolerable to me. But I think it's worth it for people to hear it, to know if this kind of sound is intolerable to them, because this will also help guide. It's one of those headphones where it's like so specific, right? It'll help, and if you're okay with this, it'll kind of help guide how you may approach the things that you would choose for yourself to buy, right? If you listen to this and you go, yeah, that's tolerable, or I like this extra treble thing, that's a signal that, like, when you look at a graph, you can go like, I want more here in this upper range, probably. So that's
Whiskey Omega's asking what impedance those 990s are. I don't think it matters.
It doesn't.
I'm pretty sure they've all got the same problems, right?
So that's 250 ohm. Yeah, I did this testing a while ago with the other ones. There is no consistent difference, seemingly, among the different impedance models. What happens is that the unit variation is so substantial with those, largely because of the pads, that it's created these narratives around, like, the 32 ohm is like this, so the 250 ohm is like this, the 600 ohm is this amazing one, if you can drive it properly. It's like, no, that's all just unit variation.
Yep.
Yeah, and largely because with different pads, or the pads are responsible for that. And the way you can test this, and I did test this, is you can just take the pads from one, put it on the other, and it'll take on that same sound signature. And it's usually in terms of more treble or less treble. Like, below 3 kilohertz, it's fairly similar across the board. Above 3 kilohertz is where they vary more substantially.
Someone said it's a great headphone if you can't hear above 6 kilohertz.
That's true. So I'm not saying just that one, right? I think my point is more that it's worth hearing some Bayers, right? Like the 990 or the 1990 Pro. It doesn't need to be specifically that one. I also suggest trying it with fresh pads so you get the full force of the oral assault.
Well, the 990s are a good example of a product which falls into the not so great consumer feedback loop, where, like, some YouTuber or person will recommend something, other people will then buy it because it's the only thing they've heard, and it's still better than, whatever horrible headphones that had no treble they were using before. And you go, oh, these are fantastic. So then they recommend them to more people. Same thing happened with the M50X or M40X.
I can hear
as well.
all the details because it has so much detail.
Yeah, it's stabbing you with it.
But no, like, I think it's worth testing your own limits, right, to figure out where, and that's one that'll do that for you.
Nice. Yeah, I agree entirely with that pick.
Golden is crackling sometimes. I don't know what it is.
It's probably my noise reduction stuff. I have an AC unit on. I will try
okay.
turning it down.
It's
as
not
long
bad.
As you still can't hear the AC unit. Okay, I'll get up and turn it off when I need to change my camera battery.
No.
And there's one more thing which I think everyone should hear, but you need to come to SoCal to hear it. So
Yes. Oh, we'll get. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, nice tease. Nice tease.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay. So I do
let's do
have
one
another
more
one.
round. One more round.
all right, all right.
Okay, yeah, one more round. So if there's a Mount Rushmore of headphones and there's 4 picks, this is one of them.
Has to be.
The the Eggy Mans occupy one spot,
Okay.
I think. The third spot would probably go to kind of like, in my opinion, like the kind of focal open back dynamics, like the clear Alex Utopia type signature.
Yeah.
And then the fourth, and this might be a hot take because Hi-Fi Man is on the list.
I thought that would have come way earlier, to be honest.
Well, I left it for last. It's
Is the paint chipping off of yours?
Oh yeah, dude. This thing is a freaking mess. Look at that. Look at that. Yeah. This thing is old too.
Paint and that's an S, or is it original?
Original.
Oh, it's not even an S.
Dude. No. It has an SDR mod, but
okay, good.
And a capper strap available at capperaudio.com.
I mean, if you're going to EQ anyway, do you really need an SDR mod?
No. It just came with it, and I don't want to go digging around in there.
Sure.
But the presentation, again, it's like not like, obviously, yes, it measures somewhat similarly to the Hi-Fi Man options I already mentioned, but the presentation itself is rather different. And I don't know how much of that is due to the ergonomic difference, but I would actually say it's probably significant. Like, what I love so much about this headphone is that every part of it cues to kind of like an open, spacious presentation. Like, it's not just the sound which does do that. The ear chamber itself is very open. They're a very light headphone. Nothing is touching your ear. Like, every single part of it kind of steers towards that direction of like being a less intrusive device when you're using it. And I think it's an interesting experience to have the first time you wear it, and you're like, because like obviously in our discourse, if you've been around for it, you see a lot of people talking about how bright it is, how the 6K peak is murderous or whatever. But I feel like it's like not actually that crazy in terms of tuning.
It is great. It is that great.
Yeah. I mean, look, I absolutely cannot use it without EQ, like for at-home use, and be happy, just because like, but it's not the 6K peak. It's like a 10, 11K peak for me.
Oh, but it's the 6K peak for a lot of people. It's not just 6K though.
Yeah, not for me.
Dongers and I were actually looking at this recently across different rigs. And
I helped him with that a lot. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we were originally looking at it on like the 5128, and then I mentioned like check it across all the rigs, and it's like 6 to
shifts
9. Yeah. 6. Well, see, it's hard to know if that 8K peak is like actually a tangible peak for people. It's hard to say.
Might be. I mean, I will
at the
say
very least there is 6.5-ish something there.
Yeah, I mean, it varies quite a bit in terms of magnitude and location, but also like people have dips in that region that
exactly. Yeah.
You know,
like Blaine
we don't
has
know about because we only measure on like 4 heads.
Right?
He might have a dip there. Who knows? But yeah,
Blaine
basically what I'm trying to get at is that like, sorry,
EQ. He's got
Blaine has anti-sibilance built in, so he's
head-related EQ,
no,
ear-related EQ.
But yeah, it's just an interesting headphone all around, not just in terms of sound quality. That I feel like kind of towards what Cameron was saying, like seeing where the ceiling is. I'm not going to say this is necessarily the ceiling in terms of like quality for price or anything like that in terms of sound, but in terms of like the overall package you get, this is still the flagship that like actually screams flagship to me, because like it looks a little weird. It has a premium build, but it's not heavy. It's obviously expensive. It has a somewhat esoteric tuning. It's very open, widely regarded
and
as
the
being
soundstage.
technical.
I mean, really, like the soundstage on that thing it's why you buy it, right?
There are many reasons to buy this headphone, is actually what I'm kind of getting at. Like the comfort alone is kind of a reason, in my opinion.
You know, like the funny thing about that is like people do buy that headphone for the soundstage, right? Like I'd say it's
absolutely. When I wanted it in 2009, it was because of the soundstage.
Because you were soundstage built at the time. But what they really should be buying it for, it's not the tuning, it's not the detail, it's not the soundstage. They should be buying it because it is extremely low acoustic impedance, and it is and it's lightweight. It's those two things. And you know what? People should be buying the HD 490 Pro for the same reasons.
It's also much less expensive, but I do agree 490 Pro is a very comfortable headphone that people should be trying out at least. You guys want to go for your last picks?
I was just going to mention on the HD800, I feel like it's also a good baseline for EQing, specifically because it's not, other than, certain peaks moving a little bit, which just do a manual sweep and you can sort of figure out where it is on your head. Mm-hmm. It's not going to have weird, unpredictable changes like other headphones, meaning you can look at a graph and EQ it sort of to your tastes a lot easier than other headphones. You can get it sounding how you like much easier than other headphones.
And as an example, I've spent so much time, maybe I can get into this in impressions, but I put some different pads on here for this headphone, and I was trying to get it to, and I don't recommend these pads, I'll get into it, but like I was trying to EQ this headphone to my preferences based on the graph data, like from the two rigs. I swear to God, this thing, it changes to a similar degree as something like the DT990 on different heads, right? So it's much more difficult to EQ something like this, even though they're both open back headphones. This is not as low acoustic Z. It's not as consistent on the head. And so that's where the HD800 is, a better candidate.
It's also very low in terms of unit variation.
Yes.
Yeah, it's probably got among the best unit variation of any headphone, I'd imagine. I mean, we've been to the Sennheiser factory and we've seen where they're making stuff, measuring the driver, getting rid of stuff. And, we could see the tolerance values literally on the monitors there and stuff. They are tight. They put a lot of effort into their tolerances and unit variation, which is great to see because that's not the case for all manufacturers.
Well, they also, the design is conducive to that, right? Like the design itself helps.
Yeah, because you can have a headphone where the driver itself is potentially identical in each cup, but then the pads will be ever so slightly different and you get a huge variation. So all of the work you've done to get the drivers identical is thrown out the window. Especially
with the huge pads that are, ultra compressy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like with all of the things, like and this is kind of true of the Grell headphone as well, but they ended up compromising a lot of the things I'm going to say. Like getting rid of the ability or want to damp significantly, like really does kind of like paint you into a corner in terms of what you can do acoustically. Like you basically do have to remake the chassis and baffle. Mm-hmm. And because the baffle is basically the shell of this headphone, that's another limitation. Like you can't have like a separate front
that's
volume and rear
really
volume where you're having an interplay. But
I never thought
there are so many limitations with this design that they've just like foisted upon themselves because they thought it would be fun and cool. And I mean, it ended up being fun and cool, but the fact that they got such a reasonable tuning, despite like basically doing it with one hand behind their back, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and like if you contrast that design with something like even like an HD600 or HD6XX or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Those actually have a baffle, right? Like the HD800.
And it's not that there's like a significant rear volume to it, but it is like, it's not, the baffle is very clearly not the entirety of like,
I never thought of it like that.
Cross section of the headphone, like all that black plastic around the outside. Like there's vent holes in there for, doing vent hole things, but it's not nearly as open. And having
the
that
HD800
extra
is basically
kind of,
a mount. It's not.
I mean, it still has, it still does present impedance, acoustic impedance.
Yes,
it's significantly lower, such that like you really have to get the dimensions right. And obviously, they're not playing with like thick pads either. And
that's true. That helps.
Probably as a need for this kind of design. But
it's basically like
it's just
if someone like this is a terrible comparison, but like Grado is essentially just like a driver with a pad around it. There's a similar sense in which it also doesn't really have a baffle. It does in the sense that the pad becomes that, right? But if you replace the default pads with those giant Geekeria pads, there's a similar element of that, right? There's a similar kind of effect where the baffle becomes this much larger thing that couples. This is like tickling my brain for how the acoustic design is.
Sabine's asking, what is acoustic impedance?
Oh God, it's the ratio between air pressure and air velocity.
We do have a video slightly about that.
Yes.
Watch the video. That's why IEMs are bad, or why IEMs are objectively worse than over-ear headphones. There's a section in that covers acoustic.
Yeah,
impedance.
I think it's actually titled "Why In-Ears Are Objectively Worse Than Headphones."
There you go.
Yeah, if you have a material or enclosure or something, and for a particular frequency, if you played a sound, how much of it would be able to pass through unimpeded, and how much of it would be retained or blocked? That's effectively acoustic. Like IEMs block almost everything, so they're very high acoustic impedance. Whereas something like an HD800, this whole material is acoustically almost transparent. The sound can just move through it.
Or at least more transparent than most.
There's much still some stuff there.
But... Like, it's still a baffle that presents an impedance. If it wasn't, then it would have no bass.
Air itself is a low acoustic impedance. A soundproof wall is very high acoustic impedance.
The DMS video on Closebacks does a good job of explaining it like that.
Okay.
Walk through the wall.
Yeah, explaining the effects of it. Yeah. I mean, look, that's a very we could talk at length about that, but we will lose many viewers. So let's go ahead and
we could. Let's go ahead and the stakes are low here, man. We can do it.
No,
we're
on a roll.
All right.
Yeah. Let's do it towards the end when it's just the like ultra nerds remaining.
All right.
Cameron,
go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, Cameron, what is your pick?
I'm gonna say 1266.
I hate it
because 1266 is an example of a headphone where they've done something so ridiculously different. It is not normal. It is not neutral. But I think it's an example of a headphone where, for certain genres of music anyway, wacky colorations can sometimes end up in a way that just kind of works.
That's
like
great.
For electronic music, 1266 is my favorite headphone. I wouldn't listen to anything with vocals in it, pretty much. But like electronic music, it's just great fun. And it's an example of, and there are plenty of examples to the contrary where they've done wacky tunings that just do not work for anything. But 1266 is a headphone that shows, some of the fun you can have when you're not looking for something that is technically correct and neutral and measures more linearly.
Yeah, it's good to have a sense of like how something sounds where there is significant coloration, but it can actually still be enjoyable, right? And that might be a good example of that. It's not. I specifically would not choose that headphone ever because the ergonomics are so cursed.
They are
so cursed. But for that idea of like, it's actually. I mean, it's kind of like the technicalities are some of these colorations. It's a good demonstration of that, I would say. My last pick is the Odyssey Maxwell because it is a good example of a headphone that is Harman-like. And I think for a lot of people, they haven't really heard a headphone because they're not EQing things. A lot of people haven't heard what that sounds like. I could have said the AKG K371, but it's quite inconsistent on people's heads. So that's maybe not the best. It measures like Harman when you measure it on a flat plate, but like, is that really the in-situ performance that people are getting? Maybe, but I would say the Maxwell does a better job of that. So I think, especially for a lot of people who, if they plan on like looking at graphs, relative to Harman or looking at the data in some form, it's good to understand what that sort of reference point sounds like to a certain extent.
Yeah, no, I fully jive with that pick. Yeah. Okay, before we move on, are there any like honorable mentions you guys want to shout out before we move on? Because I feel like now we can just kind of like throw a bunch of stuff just in case we miss something.
There's probably ones that I've missed that I just can't think of.
I think we covered the kind of key core ones. To be
honest, did we say the clear? Or like a utopia? Yeah, we did. Griffin said that.
I said it as part of my like Mount
Yeah.
Rushmore. I didn't say it as one of the ones that's like a
Yeah.
must hear.
But like
But I
those are
do think
good
it is,
examples.
just so
Yeah.
you know, like what people are talking about when they say the dynamics.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right, nothing else?
I mean, like, would we put a Dan Clark headphone on there? I'm
I
looking
wouldn't.
around.
The Maxwell basically accomplishes that for me.
It accomplishes
in my
that.
opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. And this is one that was suggested by forum user PK500. Just a reminder to everyone who wants to suggest a topic for us to talk about on this show, go ahead and go to the forum link in the description and go ahead and suggest something. But the question is, what is the best way to make the most of your listening time at shows? Are the seminars worth it? Any other show tips? So I
And this
figured
is
this
also
was
CanJam's coming up. So
CanJam is coming up. So I figured for a lot of the people who may not have been to one before and this is their first one, probably a good idea to kind of talk about some of this stuff. I feel like Cameron looks like he's got something to say.
Oh, I've got a fair few tips for CanJam.
Yeah,
okay.
Go for it.
One is Saturday is always busier. So the stuff that you really want to listen critically to, I would say try and do that on Sunday because you'll have more time and it'll be quieter. The second and the biggest thing that I can say to people is plan on the internet not working. Bring a phone with some music and bring a USB, whatever your phone is, to C cable. And if you can get one on Amazon, they're like $5, a USB-C to B, like the one that goes into normal DAX cable. That way, pretty much whatever the setup is, you can say, hey, can I just plug in my phone and play my own music? You can listen to the same songs on everything because most of them will have their own libraries and it may not have the same songs. It may have different versions of the same songs, which can be a problem. So just being able to listen to the same few songs to directly compare stuff is a big benefit. So bring a phone with some music, bring those two cables specifically. You can get C to B cables quite easily. You don't generally need your own like portable amp or something. If you're listening to IEMs, you might want to do that. But for like general headphones and stuff, they'll always have amps and things, so you don't need to worry about that too much. But those are the two biggest things that I would say.
I would say so as far as the first part of that question, I think Cameron basically nailed it. There's also like it's important to remember that show impressions don't always line up with how things are going to sound if you were to necessarily buy one of those products or listen to those products in a more quiet environment, because like it's really loud in some of those places, so it's difficult to really get a sense, especially for open backs. But I was going to say ensure that you have some way of being able to play your own music rather than relying on the music that you are presented with, because that it might sound amazing, but you don't know, if you're not familiar with the music, it doesn't really help you that much. But to the question of, are the seminars worth it? I would say yes and no. Like the seminars are great. They are, some of them are geared a little bit more towards the ultra nerds, which I personally love, but I wouldn't say that this is like some of the most fun aspects of a trade show or a CanJam or something like that is just walking around and trying different stuff with your friends. And what I find is sometimes if you spend a lot of time at the seminars, you kind of miss out on some of that. So I would say, like, pick a few of the seminars that you think are like the most interesting to you, like specific topics that you're like, I really like. Say if there's one on tube amps for you, like I'm really into I wanted to hear this tube amp thing, I want to learn about it, maybe try that. But then spend the majority of your time just going around listening to stuff with your friends, because I feel like that is the most enjoyment that can be gleaned from a show. I know a lot of people go to try and like assess products, and there is an element of that, right? Like there's a lot of people who they'll be like, oh, I've never heard all the hi-fi mans, I want to try the hi-fi man, so they'll go to the hi-fi man booth and they'll do that. That it is useful, but I would say don't take as like critical of an approach or like analytic of an approach to this, because I think you'll miss, to quote Bruce Lee, all that heavenly glory, because you're concentrating on the finger. If anybody gets that reference, good job.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I get why people would go there to be analytical about gear, though, because like for a lot of people,
Yeah.
this is the first time they're going to be in a room with a lot of headphones that they can try. Like a lot of people will like choose to go to a CanJam because they don't have an audio store in their town or meets or anything like that. So for a lot of people, this is when they get to form those first impressions. And you know, as much as like I agree, like the getting too analytical about it does kind of dampen the fun. I do think there are ways to go about that are still like better. Like if you bring a reference headphone, for example, or like a reference IEM, like something that you are familiar with to use as a baseline. Like last 2 CanJams, I brought my DT200 with me, not because like it's like perfect or anything, but because I know what it sounds like in my ears, and everything kind of compared to that is very easy for me to kind of make sense of. It's a little harder with headphones because it would probably end up being a 650, but it's an open back, and it's really hard with open backs at shows. But yeah, reference is really the important thing there. And I think to Cameron's point, where you know, expecting the Wi-Fi to fail and having your own music on deck is really good to have. Are either of you DAP people like at shows?
No,
I use
I
phone
have
and a dongle.
DX300, but I just use it for B-roll. Again, I have never turned this on.
So it's interesting that you say that, because like for CanJam New York 2023, this was before I worked for headphones.com and I was just writing for Denfi. I had a DX300 and it made my life so goddamn easy. Like
really?
It was
is this
like
might be DX320. Oh no, DX300.
No. Yeah, it looks like the one that I used. I even used the blue color, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, just being able to
personally.
I don't know.
Like,
it was really good for me.
Offline everything on it.
Yeah. I just put a bunch of my own music on there, and like you know, you don't need that much. Like you're not going to be spending like hours at one booth or anything like that. Like
Tracy Chapman fast car, and that's it. I was just kidding.
No, you need like 4 or 5 or 10 songs of different genres for you to kind of go between and gauge certain areas and stuff like that.
For me, it's always Eric Clapton's "Change the World." If a song fails at that, it's going to fail at
That's absolutely a great reference track.
Yeah,
I mean, we should probably talk at some point at longer length about like our relationship to reference tracks, which ones we use and why.
But having reference tracks at shows is helpful. You know, a list of 10 tracks that you're like, I know what this sounds like on.
I mean, it's helpful for what we do in general.
Yeah. We do this anyways, but like, for people to do this at shows is useful.
I think the main thing is something you mentioned earlier, Griff, which is that treat it as an initial impression. Like going to CanJam and auditioning stuff is infinitely better than just reading what people are saying online about those products, like trying it yourself.
Or just looking at the same time.
Yes, definitely. But as Joel mentioned in the chat earlier, the background noise does influence perception and also may bias you towards. Oh, my camera just died. I'll finish this thought and I'll go change it. Does bias you towards products that have more isolation, and like even when I tried the same thing at CanJam once during the show when it was loud, and went back and tried it after again when everyone was gone. It was just a couple of people sort of clearing up, and it was quiet. You can have different impressions on things. So do audition stuff. It's brilliant. But at the same time, keep a slightly open mind for the fact that your opinions are quite likely to change to some degree once you hear something at home.
Yeah, very fair. No disagreements here. I wonder if we would actually
swap out your change your noise gate.
Yeah, I assume he's doing it.
Okay.
I don't know if we might disagree on the seminars. I actually think by and large, like a lot of the seminars will repeat, like from CanJam to CanJam, and like kind of be built upon from CanJam to CanJam. So in a lot of ways, like if you've seen it once, you've seen it every time.
Make sure you catch Blaine's seminar though.
So that's what I was going to say. But sometimes there are seminars where like it is actually something both very new and relevant to your interests. And I actually think I don't know if you. I think you might have been there for it and like saw it, but the Myths About Measurements talk that Cameron and Blaine and Constantine did was
I saw
like,
it in New York. Yeah.
Again, very heavily nerdy, but I feel like and this is largely because it starts with Cameron. I feel like it meets people at a place where they're interested, which is like kind of the eternal question of like, does the signal stuff for like DACs and amps matter, and the extent to which like what we measure actually correlates to what we hear and all that stuff. And then it gets into headphones being just flawed devices from Constantine, and then Blaine wrapping it up with actually everything is just a wash. No, but I think there's a lot
everyone's
of
checked out by
value in
then,
the
so
seminars if I think there's a lot of value in the seminars if you're willing to like get challenged about like what matters about all of this stuff. Because in a lot of ways what goes on in the seminars is kind of like antithetical to the other stuff happening
it's
at the
so
show.
antithetical,
like
right?
like it is very clearly a divide,
But also
which is
like they
super
don't
interesting to me. But
yeah, like there are a few seminars that are regularly popular, like the Sean Olive one is regularly popular, but
Sure.
that's also in part because the people who go there they're the same people. It's like it's us. Like we go to those ones, right?
Yes, it's become regular enough that Sean has started including us in slides because we're the audience, and we'll be like, it's me. Yeah. I also think it's interesting though because like those two very incompatible sets are still under the same umbrella.
Yeah.
Right. Like you leave the seminar and you're right back into the the world of people trying cables and amps and all that stuff. So like, I don't know, as much as there is like, to someone who hasn't been there before, maybe like a contradiction, to me it makes all the sense in the world that like, well,
it's
you
also
can choose to do both not just that, at the same time.
There is even a contradiction within the seminars as well, because you'll have a seminar on the one hand by someone who is like, distortion is bad and giving an explanation for why distortion might be bad, and on the other hand you might have a seminar on tube amps, right? Or like, so you can have the Harman presentation, right, from Sean. Here's what people like, blah blah blah, and then you can have a presentation from somebody else being like, actually, there's this weird deviation that people that people enjoy. So like the seminars themselves conflict in a sense, or you can have maybe Harman research on one hand, and then you could have what's the MDAX on the other. What's his name? Jacob.
Wait, Jacob.
Jacob Thundergaard. Yeah. So it's not. I'm not sure what the word is for this, but like basically, it's not all pointing things in the same direction. There's variety of different sort of approaches. And
I would say the seminars are mostly for the people who have kind of like been around a while and tried all the stuff that's like out there already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think a normal person who is still there for like trying everything will get value out of the seminars if they go to the right ones. But I feel like once you've been around a few years, been to a few CanJams, and like most of the stuff is fairly coherent within each brand's kind of house sound or whatever you want to call it, that I could spend 30 minutes, an hour at a seminar. I don't need to hear everything.
That's us though, right?
That's what I'm saying. So I think it has more utility for people like us who are very interested in this stuff, but also like already kind of familiar with what's out there because we've heard it already.
I do think, and this is a shameless plug, but I do think it's important as well. Blaine's upcoming one at this CanJam is
Did
probably
he recite it to you yet?
No, but I know the topic and I know what he's so like. I feel like this is like
it's so good,
important ones for people to see. So it's on day one at noon, I think.
Yeah.
Ish.
And Blaine's talk is one of those where it's like, because it's Blaine, you expect it to be technical, but it's not. It's really just about the hobby itself and the state of things.
So I'm going to go to that one. Come hang out with me.
What is the name of his seminar?
We're in the Dark
something
Ages.
The Dark Ages.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, okay.
Which is so fun.
We will make sure that it's recorded.
Yeah. No more microphones next
if
to
you see seminars, yes, God damn it. If you see seminars that are particularly interesting to you, go to them. But at the same time, don't like sacrifice listening time to go to as many seminars as you can.
Unless it's Blaine's, which case do sacrifice.
You should go to that one. But yeah, like there's going to be seminars which are not of all that interest to any given person. it would be surprising if you wanted to go and see every single one.
Yeah.
Treat CanJam as, you're there to listen to headphones and audition stuff. If there's a seminar that's particularly interesting, it's worth going to, but don't go there just to go to seminars and don't end up trying any headphones.
Yes.
It's funny because like whenever I talk to Clinical at CanJams, I'm always trying to get like, oh, what have you heard at the show that was like, a thing that grabbed your attention? He's like, I don't listen to anything it shows, and that's like fair, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're also sent a lot of the stuff that
Exactly.
like a brand will be showing at a show. So like,
Yeah.
a lot of the times there's really not much for us to hear that's new.
Daniel says, I hope there's Grado there. Has Grado ever had like a dedicated booth at a CanJam?
Not that I'm aware of.
I've seen their headphones there, but I haven't actually seen them. Maybe I'm not looking hard enough.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Any other tips do you think for CanJam?
You should definitely to get the most out of it. Definitely avoid going up to those weird ass, headphone YouTubers. Like you don't want to get in conversations with them and you definitely don't want to get pictures with them either. Yeah, exactly. You might catch the brainworms. No, just kidding. I was gonna say, make sure you come up and say hi to all of us. We will. I think all of us are going to be there, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
At least for SoCal.
Yeah, come say hi. That's what I would say about that.
And if you are planning to go to just one, like you need to travel no matter what, I would say prioritize going to either SoCal or New York City. Those are the two like big ones. If it's a case of should I go to Dallas or New York? Go to New York. But obviously, if one's on your doorstep, then pop in.
Yeah. Of course. I will say one other thing.
Sure.
Prioritize, and this is kind of a plug, but not really. Prioritize the tables that have, maybe not prioritize the tables, but think about it this way. The ones that are stores instead of manufacturers are going to have offerings for many different brands instead of one brand.
It's true.
So for example, if you go to the headphones.com booth, you will find many, many different brands and types of product at the table versus if you were to go to, say, the Truthier table or something like that, So just keep that in mind. Like you can really consolidate a lot of your movement around the show by going to like the thoroughfare, like store booths like us and Bloom and Music Tech and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind because I feel like that's something I learned the first time that I didn't do right, and then I did right the second time, and it was very efficient.
Yeah, and do try and like listen to something for a couple minutes at least. Don't just like put it on, listen to 30 seconds and go, all right, I'm done.
For sure.
But at the same time, if you're one of those people that has been on the same chair listening to the same thing for 45 minutes and there's a queue behind you, people might not be saying anything, but everyone hates you.
Yes.
And also turn the volume
also if you
down
listen super loud.
Yes, please turn the volume down. Oh my god.
Yeah, oh my god. No, this is something we need to say. If you listen loud, first of all, don't.
Not doing that.
But second of all, once you're done, please turn the volume knob all the way down because like there are so many times when a person will go up to a headphone, put it on, and just press play without checking the volume first, and you will cause someone hearing damage. It's
or
not fun.
Just for
the event for that person.
Yeah.
Just for yourself, I think it's probably good practice to say never just press play. Always make sure the volume is turned down, then press play and then slowly turn it up because otherwise
the left.
You will find yourself getting down to usually there's some amps switch to it backwards for some reason.
Oh, that's
oh my god, really?
Yes. In fact, Blaine, I would deafen myself with Blaine's amp because he did the volume pot backwards.
What?
But
oh my god.
Oh, it's a prototype thing. It's for I don't think it's a product. But yeah, just be careful. Look after your ears.
Hell yeah.
Should we move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh,
I think so.
The Sim channel, for Europe, Munich High End is that's like nothing else. That is an experience unlike any other. Griffin, you haven't been to Munich High End, have you?
I haven't. If you guys want to take me next time, I'd be very happy to go.
If there's one audio show to go to, period, it's Munich.
It's like although it's going to be in Vienna, it's going to
be Vienna.
Yeah.
Munich this coming year, and then after that, it's moving to Vienna.
I'm kind of excited. I hope to go to the Vienna. I've never been to Vienna. I've been to Vienna as like a kid, but like briefly. But I've never actually experienced Vienna, so I'd be curious.
Neither have I.
Could hang out with
fun.
Constantine.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been to Germany or Austria, so. But Vienna is also right in Constantine's backyard.
Yeah, we can hang out with Constantine there. I assume he would go to that.
Mingu, the seminars at CanJam, are not usually recorded. We will be recording Blaine's one, but the other ones, it's a case of if someone shows up with a camera and records it and posts it to YouTube, then yes, but they don't record them themselves.
Yeah,
I will say the other talk that I would basically always recommend people go to is Sean Olive's talk, but I don't think we're going to be recording Sean's this time. But also,
he does a lot of the same presentation.
He does repeat and just kind of build on things. Yeah. This time he is unveiling a paper, but that is going to be a published paper. So if you want kind of the gist of that, you can just either buy the paper or buy an AES membership and then view the paper.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on. And this is the news and impressions section. Do you guys want to do news or impressions first?
Let's do news.
Let's do news. Okay.
What's in the headphone news? I don't want to talk about the Porta Pro.
That's in impressions, not in news.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I think the big news of this week is that the Shenzhen International Audio Show is happening. I think it's the 18th or something like that iteration of it. But a lot of our friends are there. Corinne is obviously there. Mark Ryan, Super Review, is there. VSG from Tech Power Up is there. I'm sure others, like they had a whole list of like influencers, and I'm fairly sure we know a lot of the people on the list that are going. But yeah, there have been a few interesting IAM releases, or I guess showings. I don't think any of them have been formally released. A lot of them coming from Moondrop. So there's
a lot of announcements from Moondrop. Yeah.
A lot of announcements from Moondrop. So first is the Moondrop Concerto, which I don't know if you saw that one, Andrew. It is it's
said
another
concerto
DSP.
like you're biting into an apple.
Isn't it an Italian word?
I guess. Are they always biting into apples when they say concerto?
I don't know, man. Anyway, it's a USB-C DSP IEM, so kind of like their Moondrop May or Droplet or anything, but it's quite a bit more expensive. I think it's right under $300. It's using the new VDSF tuning, and it's not quite like the Quarks 2 we got or the Quark 2 that we got, where it's like it doesn't even really hit the target. Like it hits their target and is actually a little bit warmer. I don't know if it's going to be like an Asia exclusive or if they're actually going to sell that overseas. Mark got his hands on it and did post a measurement, which I can pull up for chat real quick. Let me
just make sure you mute your window capture.
Yep.
Echo.
I think that shows
I'm both
right.
glad to see that there's more kind of DSP enabled products showing up, because I think it's an underutilized tool. Like the main bottleneck to sort of EQ and DSP, I think, is that there's a bit of a learning curve to doing it yourself, and also people don't necessarily want to do it themselves. So having it just be in the cable is pretty cool. I do hope that Moondrop improves their software, though. It feels like their products could be so much better if the app itself was just a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree on that after having tried a few of their DSP
Ice cold
IEMs.
take, but
yeah, but I mean, so this product looks somewhat interesting. I mean, it's got flat low mids,
what is with the channel
later
balance?
ear gain rise. Yeah, I'm not sure about the channel imbalance, but you know the treble
pretty
looks
wide,
okay.
Pretty wide Q there for the mids.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm expanding it quite a bit. So if you
is that what I'm even looking at though? Like I can't really tell from the.
So it's a 1 dB channel imbalance. It's really not that big a deal.
Okay.
It's just the scaling. I expand it because squiggling scale is too narrow. But so they came out with this, which I think again is around the 300, and then they came out with the Catens, which is, I believe, another single DD. Bringing back the target here. I mean, it pretty much just looks standard
just looks like an
single. Yeah. So I think this is building off the Kato platform or Kato platform. Doesn't look like what I would have done.
Not at all.
But yeah.
But Cameron,
So
you might like it.
Sorry,
he
say
does
that
like
again. I was
Kato.
responding to a message. I like Kato. Yeah, Kato's good. I've lost mine, unfortunately, but yes, I do like the Kato.
Oh, it's a shame.
That's too bad.
But yeah, so those are the two Moondrop IEMs I think that got
This looks like
released.
not what I would have done with the Kato.
I would agree. In other news, Truthier had two big ones. The first being the new version of Project Blue, which I'm going to pull up a different target for that one because, well, I mean, we know what Quinn's going for, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it seems to fit the bill.
Even more Harmon.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a type of sound people want, and I think the big part of Zero Blue that's gonna be fun for people is that I don't have any pictures, but have apparently significantly reduced the nozzle width.
You know why
so for
I'm
people who
annoyed
didn't like
by
what's up?
this? I feel like it's annoying. Well, okay, so like the race to the bottom has been Harmon, right? Like we could say that that's fairly uncontroversial to say, right? At the same time, I bet if you took any reasonable, HRTF based target and, had people listen to that would have become the trend as well.
We don't know.
So, we don't know, but
I mean, so to be clear, the first Harmon paper for IEMs was that where they basically just did take the
no, I
the
know. I'm
already
saying in terms
tilted
of like the
2013.
products that have like trickled down and like gotten cheaper and cheaper. I bet it could have been any. I bet there's many different ways for that to have happened, and then it ended up being Harmon, right? Regardless of the fact that the community didn't like Harmon, it was
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right? Well,
and then
we're still moving forward.
Yeah, but then you end up with this weird scenario where like it measures well, but you like your genuine impression of this is like this is not a good sounding product, but it measures well, right? And then this weird disconnect occurs where people are like, I don't trust the graphs, but it's like it's frustrating.
A little bit, yeah. But so that's one of the things that came out of Truthier. The other thing is moving to this tab. This is apparently the new thing on the Hexa platform. I don't know if it's going to be called Hexa or not, but it comes in like a smoky white shell that is apparently not the final shell, and apparently it's not going to be smoky white at the end of it, but I really, really want it to be. I love the look of that. The cable actually looks quite nice too. Kind of looks like the Blessing 3 cable.
Hey, Cameron, do you want to answer the super chat there from Mo?
I did.
I think you already did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mo.
But this is a picture courtesy of Mark Super Review, so thank you to him. A few people have heard it. There's no measurements of it or anything like that. But yeah, I would say look out for people's impressions once the kind of after show stuff gets published. Yeah, I don't really know of any other things that would be super relevant to people in our audience. Like Moonjob also released a speaker, but
oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
well, I was going to mention
I don't
we
know what's up with that.
maybe should talk about the updates to the ratings article, changes that happened there.
Oh, that's a good call. We can talk about that right now, actually.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
because they have.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're the best person to talk about that because
well,
you actually
first, the context here is that after we sort of called them out on that, was specifically Blaine and Cameron called them out on some of the scrungly statistical analysis in general. There was also some commentary on Reddit where the author of the article responded to our critique, and then Blaine and him, the author, got deep into the weeds on all of that stuff. So now there seems to be an update that has resulted from that. So Cameron, if you want to talk a bit.
Well, one of the biggest things is that when they were doing the sort of comparisons between the different curves. So Harman versus I can't remember the other ones they listed, and base light and base heavy versions. Their p-values, which effectively tell you how statistically significant the result is, didn't make sense. And I think the initial post from the guy on Reddit said that it wasn't a mistake and they were done correctly. And then he did update that and said, nope, it was a mistake and we've corrected it. So they do now have presumably correct p-values. We don't have the underlying data, so we can't check it. But the interesting thing is that with those now corrected, what it basically shows us is that the only results where there was a statistically significant difference between curves was when it was a base heavy or base light version, not between any of the just different curves themselves. So that, in combination with some of the other issues which Blaine talked about in terms of how noisy the data was, unfortunately just sort of reinforces what we were saying, which is that the conclusion they've come to is not supported by the data. The only thing that their data actually supports is that there is a consensus as to whether people prefer more or less base. But other than that, the difference between curves was there wasn't a statistically significant result. And so, I mean, we overall agree with their conclusion in terms of that, you know, a single line target generally is not what you should be aiming for. And it's why we show data with a range of preferences, because there's going to be inherent differences between people as well as just sort of confidence intervals. It's just that, you know, in order to have a conclusion, you still need to have data that actually supports it. So whilst we agree with their conclusion, the methodology itself was a bit problematic, and then now corrected data just confirms that their conclusion isn't supported by the data they do have. So that's kind of the gist of it. Yeah.
And to our detractors in the previous live stream that basically said that, you know, we were wrong for pointing that out, I would like to now extract a thorough and thoughtful apology from you, because we told you so. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, like, to be clear, we're not doing this because like, oh, boo ratings or something, or just trying to, you know, have drama. We're doing this because, you know, we want sort of the hobby and the industry to be pushed forward, and so analysis like this and stuff is great. It's great that more people are doing it, and it's always welcome. It's just that at the same time, especially when you have a platform as large as ratings does, where that's going to be one of the first things that people potentially just looking into some of this stuff see, you need to make sure that it's watertight. Even though we agree with the conclusion, a conclusion gained from bad experimentation or data is problematic. And if you want people to trust what you say, you have to make sure that you're doing things the right way.
And also,
and
like,
when,
well, I was just going to say, when to that last point, it's worse, because when we agree with the outcome, it's like even more reason for it to be scrutinized, right? The supporting evidence for that needs to be scrutinized. And so like, this is an interesting case where it's like, we think it's right. We think that it's true what they're saying at the end there, but we can't just say that. There has to be,
while it's tempting to just accept the conclusions of the people we agree with. I think our history has kind of shown at this point that like we're still interested in like verifying that what they're doing is correct, which is why we would want people
we would want people to do the same with stuff that we put out as well.
100%.
Like, you know, with you know, the ABX testing and stuff, there was some back and forth with that, and this is a case of where I think it's one of those things where people often look at things from a sort of internet perspective, where it's like, oh, this is drama, they're fighting. When actually it's more of a sort of academic perspective where it's like, no, you've got to, you know, sort of do checks and balances and go back and forth with people, regardless of whether or not you agree with them, to just make sure that things are, you know, done the right way. It's a mutually beneficial thing. If we see something which we go, hey, you might want to revisit that, we'll do so. And if we put something out and someone else goes, hey, you might want to revisit that, you've got something wrong or should do doing it this way, we would encourage people to do that. It's nothing to do with drama. It's to do with that. That's how progress works. It's not about being right. It's about doing things the right way and seeing what conclusions come out of that.
Yep.
Hear, hear.
And yeah, they did change the wording from some of their stuff from base accuracy to target adherence, which is a better wording, I think.
Joel says it's not drama is definitely the vibe I got from that thumbnail.
So
okay, the thumbnail was a bit, like, I mean, it was a great thumbnail, but that, to be fair, that was a little bit
Well, see, you
So
got to
it
hook
was
people
probably
with the
like,
spice, right?
yeah.
I
Like
mean,
it
look
was
drama.
back
probably
to
like
the one with
11. It was
Was
11
I was
my
gonna say-
time when
punching
Blaine said that
camera with an
idea, and
amplifier.
then just started sending me pictures of him in his room, like,
yeah, like just to be clear,
just
go
like,
back
there's
and look
no
at
way
the
I'm
stream
not
where
gonna
it
make
was,
that a thumbnail.
look at the one where it was me and Blaine arguing over amplifiers, right? It was
Yeah.
a similar deal,
So good.
literal fist fighting there.
Yeah.
It's a thumbnail. It's that's yeah, but no, that was a good thumbnail.
Sometimes
actually.
you just got to take the good content when it comes.
Sometimes if you've got to take the low hanging fruit with that.
Yeah.
LTTstore.com.
Hell yeah.
All right.
Anything else for news?
For news, nothing that we haven't already talked about. I don't believe.
I'm just going to change my mic setting real quick.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think there's anything. Did you want to give him? I can give impressions of stuff if we're on to.
Yeah, no, we both have impressions to give, so you can go first if you want.
Yeah, I have several impressions. One is the MMX 100, which I have somewhat. Where did I put it? Okay, I have the box. Oh no, it's in the box. The MMX 100. Measured it. Some of you guys saw the squigs on Twitter. It's a typical sort of Bayer dynamic sound. Really strong bass if it couples, which is, I don't know, unlikely, I actually think. But really spicy treble. But the mid-range, and then it has that really strong dip in the lower mids, so it's kind of lean sounding there for the mids. But I can see why Blaine thinks it's decent and acceptable, right? For its price point, certainly I have come across worse for sound quality, and it's not one that I would personally choose because the treble is too spicy. But if somebody likes lots of treble, that might be okay. But it's that typical Bayer dynamic kind of sound signature. The bigger issue is that it's unwearable, categorically unwearable. It's so ergonomically cursed that it is just so uncomfortable. I don't understand how anybody. It's meant for people with really small heads, maybe, like really small heads. Or children. The next impression that I have is of this. I hope it's in here. It is the replicator headphone, the Sennheiser HD 518. So this is the headphone that was used in the Harman work, the Harman research. Obviously, they EQ this, as part of the process. It's not the default sound signature, but I was just, this was sent in by Oratory 1990 for me to check out and to measure on the 5128, and so I was also listening to it, and my impression of it is that I would not choose this. It's very warm poo. It's like if you think the 650 and 6XX are warm poo, this is like even more warm poo. But the caveat, like it has the ear gain in the right, so like that section is good, right? Like it's for a general HRTF, it's solid there. It's just way too much in the low frequency, and kind of the whole thing is just mega down tilted. So it's kind of low res. But the caveat is that the pads on here, I can't replace the pads on here with like fresh pads from the 600 line because I have a whole bunch of fresh pads there, so I couldn't compare fresh pads to fresh pads. So your guess is as good as mine as to what the sound would be like, because these are in some state of wear, right? The pads. I don't know if they're extremely worn or closer to new, but they are in some state of wear. So I just put in my labeling for that data, I just put that they're worn pads because they were worn. I just don't know how worn. I had more impressions. Well, of this.
Did you try EQing them to Harman 2015 and listening to them?
Not yet. That's the next thing with it. But again, I'm a bit concerned because I don't know the difference in the pad wear between what they did and what these ones are.
Of course.
So
yeah, I was just
so it's a guess, right? But that's the next step with those. And then also to compare across rigs when EQ'd to that as well, because I think that's kind of interesting. Sure. I mean, the funny thing is that even on the Gross, it's not the same pinna. So like it's not a Welty pinna, right?
Yep. None of us have the same pinna.
So it's like, I mean, like people are like, they're using the Gross and the KB5000 for Harman, but like this is what people don't realize. Even the people who are like evaluating relative to Harman is that that's not the ear that's used it's got a different HRTF. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Like that maybe we should do a stream at some point just on that, because we would alienate so many people, but like it's kind of frustrating that people are so militant about the Harman target when they're not even using the right fucking ear in the first place. Anyway, that's
Yep.
So the other impression it's going to give is of this. So this is the Hadenis. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. With
Adenis?
Adenis, yeah, with the Dakoni leather sheepskin pads. And now I was originally going to try the other pads, these ones here, the suede ones, because I've been trying these in the Batiste and stuff like that. In general, I don't recommend these pads because, like, even for the Batiste, without, like, if you're not going to EQ anything, I don't recommend them because they just make things so ridiculously bass heavy. Like it turns this into an Eris. Maybe not for the treble, but for the bass, it's absurd, right? So without EQ, I just wouldn't. I'd say it's not even in the realm of close to the default sound signature. But one thing it does improve on is it does sort of fix that timbre shift for the ear gain for both these pads and the suede ones. And fixing that timbre shift to the ear gain is nice because it makes things a little bit more timbrally pleasant, but it's dominated by this massive bass boost anyways, so that kind of defeats the purpose. But here's the thing. I actually am going to, for this headphone, I think I'm going to daily run or regularly run these pads. And it's not because of the sound quality, because I'm just going to EQ this anyways. It's because the coupling is actually better with these pads from my head, and this is going to get real weird, but like for whatever reason the leather kind of like affixes itself to the side of my head, and it creates a seal in a way that the default pads do not. Right, the default pads are this material, which I don't find uncomfortable here, but it's this sort of material kind of makes the headphones slide around a bit, like you move your head and it kind of but with this one it like, maybe you guys can hear this, but like if I pull this off, it kind of peels itself.
I don't want to hear it.
So there is a sense in which the leather binds to the skin, which is a really weird and gross thing to think about. But it does, and it creates a much better seal than on my head, because I was measuring this with in-ear microphones as well, comparing it with in-ear mics block canal data with these, and with these ones I don't get because I wear glasses, right? I don't get the same response that I get on like the flat plate or the B&K. In the bass I get less bass response, and with this one it's more and more consistent. So I just use these now, and I EQ the shit out of them. Maybe I should put an EQ profile up. There's a lot of filters there. It's personalized to me with the glasses, right? So that's a consideration there. But I find these do a better job of coupling. That's the gist of that, even though I would not recommend them.
Okay.
One other thing, and I don't have impressions yet of this, but I will soon. Speaking of the Harman replicator stuff, this is the Harman replicator IEM, the Momentum. We were just talking about this earlier, but one thing, so I'm going to do the similar kind of testing with the Momentum here on the 5-2-8. But interestingly, we were noting that like in the Harman research, this is what gets used, right? But if you look at this, it's a very different style of shell compared to what you find with most IEMs. Like I have the Kiwi Ears KE4 here. You'll see what I mean. It's totally different style. I don't have it here.
Much longer.
I don't know where I put. Here we go. All right, so this is like the Singolo, right? Like this is a more conventional shell, right? And that looks like that. And here is what is this? Is this SimGot EM6L, I think? Or no, what is this? I don't know what this is, but here's another one. Oh, maybe that is. Is that an EM6L?
I think so.
Yeah. So you see the shell design, it looks kind of like that. Very different from this much more like smaller kind of. Would you say this is like a bullet style? Sorry.
I would say it's kind of like the JVC like HAFTX1, where it's like
Yeah.
kind of like an offset bullet shape or something like that, where it's not really a bullet because it doesn't just go directly into your ear,
Yeah.
but it does kind of like have a shape contour or an angle contour, I guess. But honestly, the most interesting thing to me about that is that the nozzle is so thin and so long.
Yeah. So here's the hypothesis that we're going to consider here, right? So the biggest criticism of the Harman work is for IEMs that, well, as far as the sound quality is concerned, not methodologically, is that it's got too much ear gain, right? Like the bass was explained because they
5K.
were using it. Yeah. So the bass there was too much bass, but that was explained by the coupler not having the more, like the 711 coupler not having the accurate acoustic impedance that the 5128 has. And now they've changed that. They've found the difference, right? They've found what's going on there and why that looks weird in the bass on the IE research.
The difference between headphones.
The difference between exactly the difference between headphones and IEMs. But that was never the big criticism that people had of the IEM. It wasn't that it had too much bass. It was that it had too much treble. It had too much in the lower treble or ear gain, like too much of the 5K, as Griffin said. And one of the things that happens when you have IEMs that are very deeply inserted, and you can test this even just with a regular coupler, like with the canal extension tube. If you insert it more deeply, you will reduce 5K. You will get less 5K because it's effectively killing a length mode because it's filling in that air volume, essentially. And so the hypothesis is, so I'm trying to show what this looks like. I can't right now. But the hypothesis is that if you take this shell design like this, where there's a long, thin nozzle, and you insert it more deeply, it might naturally kill that resonance. So the people in that study who are using the momentum replicator IEM here to test Harman IE, they may actually be getting less treble energy in practice than what the Harman IE curve is, and how IEMs like the I'm just grasping at IEMs here, like this one here, the Singolo, IEMs like this may actually be getting. So
especially because IEMs trend kind of the opposite lately, where they're going towards more shallow insert, bigger shells. It's unlikely that people using a momentum and like any typical IEM that is often recommended would be getting a similar level of insert depth.
So the plan here is to effectively get the replicator IEM here to match Harman, i.e. 2019, and then listen to that and see if it's as intolerable as what it would be like to measure when EQing something like this to also match that same target. And if it's less intolerable, then, or if it's more tolerable, let's just get rid of the double negative, then that's a potential explanation. Like there are all kinds of other potential explanations, like people like HRTF differences, right? I think that's a pretty strong one. The fact that the pin is being bypassed is a wrench in the wheels. But and just preference as well. Like the fact that bass and treble are an arms race kind of is another explanation for this. But I think one thing that hasn't been yet explored is the length mode difference of this particular IEM and the way that it works in situ.
Yeah, and like this is part of one of the not wider in terms of many people criticizing it, but one of the more methodological issues I have with the work is that they're not testing with multiple other IEMs. It's just this one IEM. It has always been this one IEM. Even the current works are still this one IEM with this rather unique coupling and ergonomic situation. So I would very much like to see similar work that Sean is doing, just with other more traditionally built sets.
Yeah, I wonder if it would be the same, just like a blessing or something,
I'd just ask, why don't you guys just buy proper headphones?
That's a good question.
It's not a bad question.
Any impressions from you guys?
Well, yeah, I have a ton. Are you good, Cameron? Do you have anything?
I've tried nothing new in the headphone department the last couple of weeks,
other than the one thing that we can't talk about
yet. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and start with the Porta Pro wireless then, because this is easily.
Slightly.
I hate it.
What's up?
And
What'd you say, Gab?
I swear to God, we talk about that stupid fucking Porta Pro wireless every stream.
Yeah, because it's based and actual people like it.
It's terrible.
So yeah, this is the box. Comes with a cute little case here. A few cables. It's got a charging cable and a USB-C to 3.5, and it's analog pass-through, which is interesting. Actually dropped that cable, and this is just the charger. I'm not going to go ahead and get that. But when you open this, nothing's in there, because, and this is, I think, the thing that I already said, but really needs to be clarified. Normal people like this headphone. Like I got the headphone. I used it for a few hours, and my partner has been using it every day for every hour she's been awake while I've had it. Like, I've not gotten to do anything with it because she loves them so much. She offered to buy them off me, which obviously $100.
There's a
$80 with a
on
coupon.
it's the same sound as a regular Porta Pro, right?
Yes. If you're gonna, are you talking about the measurement you did with Yaxi pads?
Yeah, with Yaxi pads. Oh, so this doesn't have Yaxi pads, so it's gonna be different.
It does not. It's going to be darker.
Okay. There's a substantial.
You would not want.
Yeah. Okay. For different reasons then.
Yes, because it's still warm. But yeah. I gotta say, like, as something that, and you guys might disagree, but as something that looks good, is very easy to just slip on your head, is very lightweight, leaves you open to your surroundings, like, and is now wireless with 20 hours of battery life. Like, I had one of the nicest music listening experiences I've had in a very long time 2 days ago. So when my partner got home from work, it was around like 8 o'clock, and I was going to start dinner in an hour, but she was going to work on art stuff because she's a tattoo artist. And she grabbed the Porta Pro wireless and she's like, DJ for me. And I was like, what does that mean? She's like, you're listening to music right now. Let me connect and we'll listen to the same music. And I was like, oh, we can do that. But she was in the other room. Like, she was just chilling, working on her art in her little lounge chair. And I'm sitting here like doing work things. And we're both listening to the new Magdalena Bay album. She's listening to the Porta Pro. I was listening to another headphone I have here, which I'm going to talk about. But that was like one of the nicest music listening moments I've had in a long time.
Music listening moments was you listening to the Porta Pro, and I was going to be like, yeah, you should go post about it on Headphone.
No, but okay, so, and this is something you guys might relate to. I don't know. Like, it's not a given that your partner or, friends or family are going to be interested in this shit. Like,
no,
you are nerds. None of this matters to normal people. And like, my partner, who has access to a ton of very good headphones, goes for that every single time.
Here's my problem.
And it's the only thing I've ever had her ask me to use one of my headphones.
Here's my problem with it, regardless of the sound quality, because people can have different preferences and whatever, right? And its performance is its performance. On your headphones shouldn't exist.
Bad take.
Shouldn't exist.
Bad take. So
they crush the pinna and are horrifically uncomfortable.
So not for everyone. So my partner is small, petite, with rather small pinna. Like to the point where like eating your headphones.
So does it just rest on the
for her? Yeah, I mean it's like a Grado cost whatever. Like, and it's a Porta Pro, so it's not the least clampy of their designs, but like it's comfortable for her more than anything else I have, and more than the more than the JBL 760 NCs that I got her. So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like
TMS says Porta Pro plus a 10K tube amp is true endgame. Can't do that with a wireless one though.
You can. It's analog pass-through.
Oh really? What?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like so like not only.
But then you wouldn't.
And this is another thing I want to talk about with
wireless.
this headphone. Well, no. It's the exact opposite. So like when I think of like wireless headphones like this, right? First of all, huge stupid design thing. See this headphone? Like, you wear it like this, right? Guess where the charging port on this is? Right there.
That's dumb.
Why would
Why?
It's really dumb.
Why?
It's really dumb. You know what
It's
else
like
is
an
dumb?
Apple
The fact that
Magic
was-
Mouse moment.
Exactly. Or
Wow.
a Moondrop ultrasonic on the bottom moment. But you know what else is stupid? The fact that like if I have a wireless headphone and I want to use it wired, a lot of the time the tuning is going to be different between the two of them.
Sure.
And a lot of the time it's still going to use the battery if it's not tuned different between the two modes. The PortaPro Wireless, it is true analog pass-through. So it literally just plugs from the headphone jack right to the driver, and that's it. You're just listening to a passive headphone.
Okay.
Another thing.
Focus Apollo does the same pass-through thing, but the tuning does change.
It's very different.
So
It
it's
does.
not-
Most
yeah,
things.
very different.
And then one last thing I want to touch on, which I don't have it here because my partner is literally using it right now. The might be an unpopular take, but I hate wireless features. Like I hate the
I
fact
hate
that
them
like
too. Yeah.
with
with you.
this, like I have to like go into an app and like because I am an audiophile and have nervosa about getting the best possible sound, I'm going to browse through all the presets and sounds and customizations and all that stuff. And then there's like ANC and all that stuff, and I have to configure all that stuff with usually poorly designed buttons on the chassis of the thing itself, and it's just a nightmare. With the PortaPro, I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it's simple enough that it doesn't give me the same nervosa that like most of the wireless products like
I
this
think that's
give me.
I think that that's the best part about this product is that your average person is just gonna put them on and listen and go, and then be not care about all the shit, right? When that's a big thumbs up, right? Matthew Hilty has a question for you. Says that does it still eat your hair? Which is one of the
hugely important question. I will say I have only had like 3 hours with it, and it hasn't happened to me yet. I can ask my partner later, and then maybe you can ask me again in the Discord or something.
Happens to me, you know, I don't know if it will for me, but
my partner hasn't complained, and she has somehow more hair than I do.
But it's like it eats your hair mainly if you would adjust
when you're adjusting it on your head.
And then you can't take it off because it eats your hair.
And there are still meaningful UX downsides for this design that I think should be noticed. And this is where I'm going to say Zeus is actually a pretty good reviewer, because in his review of the PortaPro, he goes really deep into stuff like that. And one of the things that he mentions is that the kind of adjustment sliders, like the black plastic sliders, they have very like pointy corners on them, such that like if you take it off your head and adjust it, it's fine, but when you're adjusting it on your head, you're gonna get some pointy nubbins in your fingers that hurt. So he's literally filed those down.
And I saw he did a thing where he like took the little blue bit off, right? He cut it with scissors or something. He did a post on Twitter. What's the little blue bit on the side?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't see that. That's funny. But I mean, so that like the little what is it? Comfort zone thing that like
that controls
the tilt of the earpiece. I get why it's there. I've never personally had to use it, but it might be because of my head shape and size. But yeah, overall, like this is also one of the few times where a brand like either re-released or updated a product and just made it better. Like there's nothing worse about this product than the old product. It is literally just a unilateral upgrade all the way through. I can't think of anything that I like less about this one, other than maybe the fact that the 2 headband look, because it's like two strips instead of one.
Sure.
I do prefer the look of the 1 flat headband, and it because it's now 2 bands, it's a little bit more tense, so the adjustment's a little bit harder.
There is one downside, which is that because it's now wireless, you feel less like a hipster. So people who want
honestly maybe a downside to other people, like genuinely, like a lot of people probably were buying this for the fact that
the retro
is wired, and that's like like a hip thing. But I mean, it's still got drip. Like it still looks as hip as it ever did.
I mean, you and I have very different ideas of what looks good. That doesn't look good to me. To me, okay,
that's fine to me.
The PortaPro. This is speaking as somebody who has owned several of those, not just not the Porta Pro specifically, but the
KSC 75, KPH 40, KPH 30i.
Now I believe it's KSC 75. I
That's
can't remember.
The second most popular one, I think.
And I have Metal 571's Porta Pros here. They occupy a similar space for me as people are going to hate this. They occupy a similar space for me as Grado because they are similarly uncomfortable. I actually think Grados are more uncomfortable because the material on the pads is rougher and therefore more cursed. On the Porta Pros, they're at least like a more...
They're generally heavier too.
And they're heavier, yeah. And we're somehow worse build quality.
And obviously they sound worse too. Like I think it's pretty uncontroversial.
I will agree with. I will take a Porta Pro over a Grado. Yeah, but, no questions asked. But they do occupy a similar like level of like. If I look at them, I'm like my ears start to hurt just by looking at them because I know they will crush my penna.
I would not be surprised if they don't work well for larger heads because especially the Porta Pro, that is kind of their clampiest design. So I could understand that not being
another question is do the Porta Pros come in fun colors?
So no, they don't. This is it. But
well,
if Koss is smart, because I think the huge reason this headphone has had a resurgence is because of its fashion appeal, regardless of what Dead Inside audiophiles think.
No, we're about fun here. Come on.
All right, but a lot of it is that. But like, I bought one of these like on release once I confirmed it was tuned the same. And for anyone asking, it is tuned exactly the same. Didn't change anything about the sound. I would buy another if it came in a more fun color. I might even buy two.
So here's what they need to do. They need to make it available in multiple colors. They need to release a version that is not on ear, and then I will consider it.
Okay, never going to happen. So look, cost doesn't need to be for you. I just think this is the kind of product that like we normally, like as evidenced, wouldn't really give the time of day, but we really, really should when it comes to considering like the range of types of use people get out of a headphone. No one's going to wear a Batiste for working out if they're a reasonable person. Because that thing is going to get hot. It's heavy.
Also, it wouldn't work great because it kind of like goes like that on the head, and it kind of messes with the ANC.
Porta Pro's pretty secure on my head, dog.
Yeah, but is people going to use a Porta Pro for working out? I would just use this for working out.
I would. I mean, I would too. Yeah, but Porta Pro's less expensive than that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do have other things that I do.
Should they make a wireless KSC 75? That's what somebody in chat says. It's a good question.
If they can, I'm surprised they even fit wireless into this. Like there's so little real estate. Like I am shocked by the fact that they did that. But I guess they have that like stock windfall money from a few years ago. But okay, I'm gonna move on here because
it was a bit of a meme stock for a while. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So this is the Capra Audio Satyr 2.
Cool. It looks HD600 like.
So it kind of is, but with a peerless driver. So you can see it's very the same 50 millimeter. Yep.
So he covered the
actually
back.
Right now I have 6X0 pads on it, which is one of the supported pads. Obviously you can get like other aftermarket 6X0 pads. But because it's not the same driver, and obviously the baffle's different, the overall acoustic scheme is different, it is a different presentation. So you get the benefits of things like the Borealis or the Omega, where the driver resonance frequency being lower means you do get significantly more bass extension. Yeah. There are two things that I really like about this headphone, and that's one of them. The other is that Capra tends to do this well because they do use measurements as well as their ears and like actually use proper human-based targets. The mid-range itself is also very solid, especially with these pads on it. It's like basically just a slightly warmer take on 6X0. So like a little bit more mid-bass and sub-bass. Okay. Well, a lot more sub-bass, a little more mid-bass than 650 or something like that.
I have a challenge for you, Capra, for your next version of this. It's called the Satyr, right?
Yes, Satyr.
Yeah. The next one you make has to be called the Satyr Unveiled, and you take the grills off. And no, it actually will change the sound.
They're pretty open, dude.
Okay, but having
so
worked
just
with
get rid
that
of it.
driver, exactly. Having worked with that driver, DMS is right that covering it at all does tend to have an effect on
it does have an effect, yeah. But so I love the bass and mid range of this headphone, and I will say the treble is reasonable. Like it's still less bright than most planars. And honestly, a lot of like dynamic headphones that are coming out with like bass extension now, like the Meze 109 Pro and stuff like that.
Right.
It is a little too spicy for me in kind of that like 10 to 12K area.
Literally
most things are.
Yeah.
Most things are. Like 650 is still too spicy in that one region for me too. So I'm not really going to knock
too bright.
this.
Confirmed.
Which is the region that's particularly bothering for you?
No, 10K. So
10K,
here's the
right,
thing.
okay.
Griffin is actually right if you have an ear that is like I say right, it's his preference. But if you have an ear that is like the KB5000, that actually makes perfect sense because even relative to that HRTF, it has a peak. 650 has a peak at 10K, as does the 600. So
they
not a crazy take if you actually understand it. Yeah, no. It's like it doesn't sound like that for me, but for anybody who has an ear like that or has a response like that relative to their HRTF, yeah.
Got it. So now feedback for Capra, because they didn't send this to me. This was actually sent by a community member in our Discord who goes by Golem. Good guy, been getting very into DIY lately, and he made me this as well as one other thing we'll talk about. Some feedback, which I think they're aware of. The first thing is that they use a kind of nylon material, just like a thin, it's actually totally fine for like the comfort or whatever. But the way the nylon is affixed and how tight it is has significant implications for the tuning. And unfortunately, it's just really fiddly. Like, because this is like a DIY headphone that you can just print and make yourself, like it's fiddly to get the nylon quite right.
I'm curious because if you take, do I have one? Oh shit. If you take a 650 pad off of it, 650. Okay, I don't have one here, but there's that foam. There's the foam material on the inside. Yeah. Do you put that on there as well?
So you can, and it actually does make it a little bit warmer. Now I'm not sure if that's because it is like pressing the nylon down and making it more like taut.
That's what I'm wondering. If you okay, so the thing is in the 650 design, so it has that metallic looking baffle, right?
The baffle. Yeah.
So when you press the foam in on the 650, like with the pad, okay, that's very 650 like. That's extremely 650 like.
It is. I mean, there's no metal baffle though. There's no like that's open.
So with the metal baffle is kind of like a sheet, right? That's been kind of stamped onto the thing on those, right? The foam kind of becomes part of the baffle there, and it becomes part of the acoustic system that allows it to get the bass, right, and the low frequency stuff too. I'm wondering if you remove maybe Capper can speak to that. If you remove the nylon and just use the
650 foam,
the foam baffle insert, right? I wonder how that would go.
He would have to speak to that. I have not done that experiment yet.
Maybe he did try it.
Yeah, but that's one of the two downsides. I would.
You get 10 dB less bass if you only use the foam. Wow, interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the tautness of the
filling
nylon really
in
does make
the
a
nylon
difference.
Effectively.
I guess, yeah.
If you okay, yeah, interesting.
But so that's the first downside. I just think that's a little fiddly, and like if I were, making this like a consumer product that people could buy instead of like a DIY project, that would be a big flaw in the design. Where like, okay, we need to find a different way of tuning this because the nylon, like, as soon as someone removes a pad once to swap it for a different pad, like they'll, they won't get it the same way the factory did. So that's a problem. The second thing is I have on this show many times glaze the hell out of the capper strap. And indeed, the capper strap and the headband itself do work very well for me on this and basically anything I've put it on. The downside is I don't really feel like this is a comfortable headphone even with that. I don't know if it's like the cup design, not having enough like depth past the pad, or if it's just the like kind of ricketiness and the kind of on the softness of the corners.
3D print
it's a 3D printed headphone, yeah, and I do feel like the baffle kind of being just like rigid plastic like that in that kind of cutout pattern that they've done doesn't give quite enough for my ear to like rest against, because like it does touch all of that, and it's not quite as comfortable as it could be. So that's basically it though. Like I do think, I don't even know if this is for sale, if you can buy it. I know it's a DIY kit that you can buy. If you have a printer,
I'm curious.
You should just make one.
Yeah.
You should. I can show you measurements later.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a eminently reasonable sounding headphone. Like I would take it over most things under HD 600 or 650 price. It is very solid, and there are some things it does better, like the bass extension. And if you find those headphones dark, you might find that elevation in that one region to be better on that. And then my last thing, which is I haven't been too vocal online about this headphone because it's not something you can buy, and making it is a pain because it's not even to their instructions. It's a mod, is the Capra Audio Ouroboros, which is their closed back design.
You do not get a pass on that. You can't say whatever the fuck you just said.
Ouroboros is how you say it?
Yeah, I believe. Did you say Ouroboros?
Okay, yeah, it's the same syllables, just accented differently. Let me know. Anyway, so this was made for me also by Golem, with a nice color changing green, purple with resin finish, which absolutely love that. So this uses a different driver. It's kind of a no-name coaxial driver. So there's a smaller driver. So it's kind of like a ring radiator where there's like ring radiator on the outside and then a smaller driver on the inside. They don't use the smaller driver. They just use it as a passive radiator. They disconnect it. But this thing is like, I don't know that I have a stock headphone in my house that I prefer more. And I have this on my desk with me.
What are the measurements like?
I can show you.
Okay. So
this is a mod. This is not the stock Ouroboros. It's very close to the stock Ouroboros, but
it's a Turtle Beach driver.
it's a driver.
I can't tell if he's being serious or not.
No, it's a driver found in the Turtle Beach Recon 500.
Wow.
Okay, hold on. Let me go ahead and pull this up on chat.
Weird.
Okay, there we go.
Those kids on Xbox Live were right the whole time.
So
all right, take a look here.
This is a
no 10K
headphone.
That explains it.
I mean, so this isn't really shown in the DFHRTF because it's not calculated, but I'm pretty sure this ear just like has that feature. That said, I do like that about this headphone. Yeah. I don't have the new ear, but it even relative to most headphones, I do think this headphone has less there. This little mid-bass hump is a little bit much for me, but the two things I really love: no low mid-range dip here, typical of basically all closed back headphones ever, period. Like, I don't know what they did. It really works for me there. Like, male vocals don't sound. What's up?
Blocked canal data as well.
I haven't yet. So the third thing Golem sent me is actually a pair of in-ear mics. I haven't used them yet. I think I might have broken them, or they might have broken in shipping because they were giving me very weird results. Golem's results on head, they do have more leak, but this dip gets filled in as well. So it's just overall kind of more normal, and then it rolls
Yeah.
off around like 30, 40 hertz. But then the second thing is that there's no overly forward like 1.5 to 2.5 energy, which I also find is very common on closed back headphones, which makes most of them sound like really intense and shouty and kind of like almost like an IEM, where they're kind of like coupling closer to my eardrum, and like I get experiences of like painful harshness easier, especially like when you pair that with the usual dip you see in the low mid range here. Like closed backs are generally like big bass, thin mid range, and then, I mean, usually for me, too bright of treble, which this absolutely does not have. Now, just comparing it to the normal one, the one that was their stock design, still a very similar design and still very similar features. It's just a little bit of zhuzhing here, a little bit warmer here. Overall, not a massive difference, but enough to make this like, for a closed back, like, yes, it's a little bit warmer. It doesn't have that 10K peak on my head. I would probably reach for the Ouroboros before I reach for a 650, though.
Interesting.
Again, because of the treble working a little bit better for me. Now, unfortunately, again, you guys can't really buy this. When we say the driver is from the Recon 500, that Turtle Beach headset, that's because like people are actually currently buying that headphone just to farm drivers for it, because you can't get the drivers anywhere else we know of. And there are a lot of other changes that Gollum made to like the baffle and I think the infill of the cups and stuff like that. So
cool.
I like it a lot, but I've been pretty careful about hyping it too much online because it's not really something most people can get, unfortunately.
Meanwhile, Turtle Beach is going, why the hell are people buying so many of these all of a sudden?
I think most people are buying them used. I don't even know if they're still sold new.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
so
as far
Recon
as recent
500, right?
Yes. Yeah, it has like a gray camo finish on it.
Hold on a second. I may have just recently evaluated one. I may have had one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because I just did 2 Turtle Beach headsets for LTT.
Oh no, I think you sent me that
Recon
data,
50
and
and
I was like,
Recon
oh my god, wait, did he just get one of those in? And no, it
No,
wasn't. It was like
not
Recon
that.
50 and 70.
Recon 50
like
and
that,
Recon
right?
70. The 70 is actually all right. The 50 is a piece of hot garbage that should have gone straight to the landfill directly from the factory, not the recycling, because humanity needs to deal with the shame of the fact that that product exists. Like we don't deserve to, recycle that. It should be, we should suffer because somebody made
it outside the environment.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, just kick it directly.
I hope someone gets that reference.
Anyway, should we move on?
But yeah, that's it in terms of impressions. So if you guys want to, move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay, let's go to what we're listening to.
We haven't done music in a while. Yeah, like
yeah, we actually missed it on the last stream.
Yeah, and I have been listening to some new stuff.
Yeah, and actually, someone earlier in chat did say they want prog and metal recommendations. So if you want to go first,
all right,
I think that would help our audience.
So I have been mostly listening to not that lately. I've been listening to.
Actually,
you remember I sent you? Okay, I was going to talk to the listener, but he's gone. Yeah, fuck me, right? Okay.
I can still hear you. I'm just turning my AC up. One second.
Okay. I've been listening to I've been listening to a lot of jazz again. I mean, this is a thing I do. It is known. There's a group called the Enja Heritage Collection, and not everything is amazing that they do. I'm just going to type it in chat here. Enja Heritage Collection.
Yeah, I remember you sent me them a while
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent you Joyosa. So Joyosa, I still recommend Joyosa.
Yeah, that record was tight.
So I've been going down the rabbit hole of that for their other stuff. And they have stuff by a guy named Antonio Faro called Next Stories. And it's some of the most insane piano playing I've ever heard. This guy it's extremely nerdy piano jazz, but my God, is it ever good. If you're into piano jazz at all, it's it's also like it's extremely technical and extremely fast. So if you're not into jazz, you will hate this. But anybody into jazz needs to listen to this because it's incredible. It's not smooth, relaxy jazz at all. This is like intense, upbeat jazz. But it's very, very good. So I've been listening to that lately. And I've also been listening to Gojira. Just because
so the Olympics really got you, huh?
It did. Well, as I was saying before, that like there are many different ways that you can appreciate music, right? Music appreciation is not a, singular kind of monodimensional thing where you only appreciate the composition or you only appreciate the lyrics or you only appreciate, what this means, for the world or whatever, right? Like there's lots of different things about music that you can appreciate. And ultimately it comes down to vibes. You are being presented with an aesthetic, and vibes is really the only thing that you can anchor your sense of goodness to, if you're not going to be granular about like the specific things that you're like, oh, I love this part about the composition or whatever. If you're not analyzing it in that mode, it could be anything. It could be something as simple as like, I like the production of this record and therefore I engage with it positively. And
that's a lot of records I like.
There's a lot that's like that, right? So ultimately that I got to this sort of like thought process when I happened to be listening to Gojira, because I was like, this isn't good. This is not, there's nothing about this where I can go like, that's good. But the aesthetic that it's presenting to me is a vibe that I enjoy, right? Just the overall aesthetic that it gives me. It's not to do with any one particular thing. It's just like, so I'll give you an example. There's an album called Magma, and they have a song called Silvera. So I'm just going to type this in chat. Gojira Silvera. That is, in my opinion, the most quintessentially badass metal song. And you just put that on, you're like, this is what I want metal to sound like. This is what I want metal to be. It's just killer, fucking insane riff after insane riff, and you're just like, it puts you in that metal vibes zone, and you're like, this is great. I love this. I don't love any one particular thing about it because it's not good in any one particular way. It's just vibes. That's it. And it just makes you, it makes you kind of, I wouldn't say it makes you headbang because it doesn't make me like headbang, but somebody who would do that, yeah, it would make you headbang. So that's my.
It's interesting to hear you extol the virtues of vibes. It's
Yeah.
not. It's
You're
not
getting
the
dangerously close to having fun.
Dangerously
I'm not
close.
sure this is good.
Yeah. So Silvera, Gojira Silvera. It's everything you want. It's a quintessential metal song, and it's great because of it.
Okay. Cameron?
So sticking with sort of, well, it's not quite metal. It's like metal jazz, halfway in between. Electric Sunrise by Pliny. Although honestly,
Pliny, yeah.
Anything that Pliny does is great. He's an incredibly talented guitarist and percussionist, and just go listen to that song. He's got a very unique style of presentation that no one else quite does, and I've been getting back into his stuff quite a bit recently. Another one in terms of slightly more live sort of acoustic pop type stuff is Half Alive. They've got a track called Runaway. I'm just going to type that in.
Please.
Cool.
Half Alive. These guys are like, I almost want to say they're sort of similar to 21 Pilots, but a little bit more upbeat, and I think a little bit more interesting in terms of their composition. They've got some really good stuff. I've been into them quite a bit. Did I say Polaroid last time we did this?
Yes, I think so.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think we've talked about them a few times because I went back and revisited one of those recommendations on a different stream. And yeah, it's really good.
Polaroid's good stuff. And then this is a group which I know like months ago I've recommended, but Boogie Belgique. If you are at all into electro swing type music, they do an absolutely fantastic job. And this is a group which I've seen. Yep, I'm just doing it now. Let's do that. And there's another track called Pepper's Ghost. These guys do some, pretty interesting sort of electro swing compositions. And
inspired by Django Reinhardt, which is Boogie Belgique is probably a good name for that.
These guys, I'm also like, I started listening to them when they were like tiny and saw them in a small venue in London and just like sat and had a chat with the guy outside afterwards. And then a couple months ago went and saw them perform with Caravan Palace, which was fantastic. So they're a group I like a lot.
Nice.
And then for a little bit more of chill recommendation, Rocket Man by Her on the number 3 album. I'm just going to type this out. Not H.E.R. That's a different artist, but just Her. You'll know it because the album has boobs on it. But
Lovely.
But they've got their live album in particular is fantastic, and then they've also got some sort of professionally recorded stuff. Shuggy by them is excellent too. A little bit more mellow, a little bit more chilled out, but those guys are fantastic.
I just have to give a shout out here to someone mentioned Leprous in the chat. Did you get a chance to listen to that track that I sent over from Leprous? I think it's called...
Completely forgot.
Okay. It's called... I don't remember what it's called. I'm sorry. Oh, they just released their new album. So Melodies of Atonement is the album. So if people want prog metal, Leprous, Melodies of Atonement. Sorry, go ahead, Griffin, if you have.
Hold on, I'm adding that.
Yeah.
Wait, actually, no. My computer's being absolutely ridiculous. Okay, so I talked about this last weekend on stream, but I'm still listening to it, and I just want to be very emphatic in my appreciation of this record because it's actually even better than I thought it was once I got to listening to it even more. Imaginal Disc by Magdalena Bay. Oh man, the textures on this record are insane.
Okay, I'm gonna add this, Matt.
I don't think you're gonna like it at all. Like,
I probably won't.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's Magdalena Bay.
Magdalena Bay, yeah. It's very like digital, synthy, scrungly pop with like...
It's called Imaginal
really,
Disc,
feminine...
not Maginal Disc.
Yes.
I was getting it totally
Imaginal
wrong.
Disc, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just like a super vivid, wild album that I love. And it's just like good pop songs, but it's just like very...
I like pop songs.
In this,
I like the Beatles.
Jesus Christ. Okay, and then the second thing, and the more recent development, but I haven't stopped listening to it like since it's come out. The new Jamie XX album, In Waves, is a banger. It is so good. I've been waiting for it like basically all year. Years, because the last record In Color was also insane. But electronic music oscillates between like hip-hop adjacent sample based and pure club vibes. It's always kind of vacillating in between those, but it like...
Vacillating is just oscillating with Vaseline on it.
Okay. Anyway,
I'm
really
just channeling my inner Rob
electronic
Hawk
album from beginning to end. And like it has a lot of features on it, which doesn't really mean much to me. But there's this one song on it called Breather, which I hate to be the one that's recommending the longest song on the album, but like genuinely, like it is such a goddamn vibe. And there is a kind of the feeling of shift and metamorphosis through the track that really like kind of guides you through this experience of...
Would you say that it's
like,
Kafkaesque?
Dude, I don't know that nerd stuff. Miss me with
Well, you
that.
said metamorphosis. Come on. Somebody's going to get that reference.
I'm talking about butterflies, bro. I don't know what you're talking about.
So is he.
I don't know. I never read it. But
nobody should read
it. Okay. I'll take your word on it. But yeah, that record, In Waves by Jamie XX, one of my favorite electronic records of the year.
Okay. I will add that.
Just wish it came out earlier because like summer's almost over.
I will add that to my listening regimen here. Sorry, it's called In Waves?
In Waves.
All right.
Yes.
Added.
And if you like it, go back and listen to In Color, which was a different one.
Okay.
I'm just going to put one more recommendation, which is that if anyone wants to listen to some of the most superbly produced electronic music, BT, The Secret Life of Trees. BT did production for a bunch of other artists and stuff. And
The Secret Life or The Secret Language?
Secret Language of Trees, yeah. and that album like is stunningly well produced.
Okay, I'll give this
Hell
a shot.
yeah.
I want to keep an open mind to genres that I don't ordinarily like. So
That's
Are
good.
you into Aphex Twin?
not really, no.
No, that's fair enough.
Bad take.
I like
but
Niels
I
Frahm.
think that
Nils Fram's good.
yeah,
Nils
yeah,
Fram's
he's good.
excellent.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned last time that
Um,
he's got a quote which he was doing an interview, I think with Head, and there was a
Oh,
question
yeah, he does
asked
use their
about like
stuff.
considerations in terms of people listening on headphones and stuff. He says, "I don't care. I just like to make music for people with good speakers."
Yeah.
So it's like if
Based.
you're listening in your car, you're not getting the full experience, and I don't care. So
Yeah.
based.
I like it.
Yeah, that is categorically the definition of based is not caring.
I will say I do sometimes enjoy stuff like what you've recommended, like from Polyphia, Cameron.
Oh yeah, Polyphia's good.
But I wouldn't say that I would choose to listen to it. It's more that when it comes on, I can really see it as a like gear testing,
Yeah, that's
type
fair.
of music, right? It's really good for that because it's, as you would say, very transient heavy. I get what you mean.
There's definitely some tracks which are good for testing certain things, but you wouldn't like listen to for enjoyment.
I would listen to it like once and then be like, yeah, that's cool, and then like not listen to it again because
Yeah.
All right, should we move on?
Subjectivist challenge.
Subjectivist challenge.
Okay.
Moving right along.
Yeah.
Okay, so now is the point where if you guys haven't seen this before, basically the game, the challenge,
Joel, if you're still here,
is
send us recommendations. Sorry, go ahead and explain it again. Yeah.
So the way the challenge works is that we, the participants, have to describe a headphone using only subjective terms, meaning we can't use frequency response exactly. So no referring to hertz or kilohertz, no talking about frequency response relationships in a
We
granular
can't even say
sense.
extension because that refers to frequency response.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I feel like we have stopped ourselves from using that term before.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fair. And we can only describe all the other stuff. So kind of our subjective experience and everything kind of around that. So if you guys have a recommendation for us, you could like DM us on Discord or ping us on Discord or whatever, or you could just put them in chat. We might also just like think of ones to do.
Putting them in chat is kind of defeating the purpose because you're supposed to guess.
That's true. Yeah.
Does
Anyone wants
anybody
to
have
DM me a suggestion? Feel free.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think I got one.
I've got one if you want me to go first.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So it's a very detailed sounding headphone with vocals that are slightly intimate but with very lifelike timbre. Bass is ever so slightly soft but still pretty well controlled overall and present. It's not bass light. It's quite soundstagey with excellent layering. And for female vocals, they can be a touch sharp at times, but male vocals are generally excellent.
Is this a Meze 109 Pro?
No. No, I'd say that in
Composer?
comparison to the 109 Pro, it's a little bit more full-bodied sounding, more full-bodied and analog sounding.
Nice.
Analog.
Composer?
No.
Nope.
Is this it's an over-ear headphone?
It's an over-ear headphone.
Okay. Tell me about the microplankton. I always want to hear about the microplankton.
It's got good microplankton. Really
Good
helps with the
microplankton.
separation, layering, and depth as well.
Okay.
Whilst keeping vocals quite intimate. It doesn't have vocals too forward and in your face.
Aurorus Audio Borealis.
No. It's a planar. I'll say that.
It's a Meze Lyric 2.
No. It's very open sounding. Very
okay.
It's got
Tungsten.
great soundstage. Great. Yes. There you
go. Okay.
Griffin, you got one?
I do. So this is a headphone where my primary praise of it really has to do with things that don't have to do with sound. The comfort and build are excellent, especially for
wireless.
the price range. No, I don't mind the sound of Portable Wireless actually. But no, it is clearly a cut above its price range competition in terms of building comfort. It looks pretty cool too. Now, in terms of the sound, I would say what it kind of focuses on is a sense of. I actually don't even know if you guys have heard this headphone. I actually don't even know if I could do it because I don't think you have.
Oh, damn. What was it?
Well, maybe the chat will get it.
I don't think most of them have heard it.
Oh, is it like a super niche, like, Discord headphone? Or?
It's a very bad headphone.
Oh.
So, like, it got roasted on release, and basically no one ever paid attention. It's the Austrian Audio High X55.
Oh, no, yeah. I haven't heard it.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Yeah. Sorry, Jack.
I have one in mind.
Go.
So this is a headphone that is very comfortable and also has really good build quality. Better than most. Better than, anything around its price range, I would say. It is a headphone that has a generally warm presentation, warm kind of sound signature. It does layering and depth quite uniquely, very different from other kinds of presentations in this regard, and can sound pleasant with. I find it sounds actually pleasant with more aggressive types of music. It has, as far as its detail
Headphone
presentation,
V2.
No, it is more comfortable. As far as its sense of detail, I would say that it's not as detailed as I would want it to be, but it is. What's that?
Focal clear? OG?
Nope. It's not. It's also not as. It's not particularly dynamic sounding either, or not punchy and not slammy. But it does have a lot of. Yes.
Hey.
Was it actually Elite or was it Empyrean?
It was Elite. I was thinking specifically of the Elite because we hadn't. It's always the tricky one, right? Because the Elite is like, it's like the original, but slightly better. In certain ways, but similar, like very similar, kind of like relaxed ear gain, spicy upper treble, and warm. Generally across the board. But the crazy thing about the Elite. So it's actually way easier to EQ than people realize, and easier than the original Empyrean.
I mean, it still has that like HRTFE shape to its upper mids. It's just about kind of like
it's
equalizing
relaxed.
the stuff below that.
And the issue I always found with the previous one was that the upper treble was just not as well integrated with the rest of the ear gain. It was just too much relative to the relaxed nature. So if they just kind of toned down that resonance, it would actually be fine. And with the Elite, they kind of made it
warm.
Yeah. And with the Elite, they kind of did that. And I think that's one of the things that contributes to its better reception for some of the subjective qualities. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I think it was Oratory 1990 who said, this one measures so weird, but it sounds so good. Like, I actually think he really genuinely likes that headphone.
Yeah.
And it might be because
tends to actually really like that kind of recessed rise into the ear gain area.
I get the sense, and I can see why, right? Because there's certain, at least when I was listening to it as well, like there were certain genres of music that I felt did really well with that kind of presentation because they were more, it was more a more relaxed presentation of the kinds of things that might sound fatiguing.
I mean, he's also a metal guy, so that makes sense.
He opened for Feuerschwanz. It's not just anybody who opens for Feuerschwanz, you got to.
Yeah.
Anyway,
do I have one? Okay, I have one. So this is a headphone that often gets a lot of praise for its soundstage, but frankly, I have no idea what anyone is talking about when they say
Growlphone.
Like, no. Like, not only does it not have that kind of distanced presentation that I feel like is really nice about other headphones that are good for that quality, it also sounds very like narrow and like, well, yes, maybe like the imaging is frontal, it is very close in front of my face in a way that I find very unappealing. No.
Headphone V1.
No. I would say it is actually an exceedingly limp headphone as well, with really not much, punch or slam or decay to the presentation. No. And I do find that the timbre is on the grittier kind of papery, dry, sandy sound that I really just don't like with anything. No. This is also a headphone where I feel like the comfort is not nearly as good as it could be, given the weight of the headphone is not very
so it's a heavier. It's not a heavy headphone.
HD800, since everyone in chat's saying it.
It's not HD800.
Okay.
No.
I was gonna say,
like Griffin doesn't. Griffin is of the sound. We shouldn't be chasing soundstage persuasion, which is the correct take, but also can hear soundstage, the spaciousness effect. Like we all know what
we
that
all
is.
can. Yes.
We all can.
Anyway,
R70X. That's a good.
No.
Oh, because that fits that description.
Kinda.
Yeah. Ananda.
No. I will say overall, it's just on the kind of lean and clinical side of headphones that like as much as like no. As much as we like might like look at it on a graph and say, oh, that looks good, I've never really heard it to sound really that good.
Is it open or closed?
DCA Expanse.
It's open.
It's open.
Yeah, Expanse.
No. And again, like it doesn't have that kind of dynamic tactile sense of anything. It's a very thin
Clear MG.
No.
HE1.
I'm actually surprised. No. I'm surprised it's taking you guys this long. It is a kind of like for an open back. It's there you go. Forever. Yeah.
So apparently there's a revision to that headphone that people keep asking me to
I don't know.
review.
I have not observed unit variation to be good with that headphone. Yeah. So like it could just be that.
I liked it. I didn't like the treble, but I liked everything. Like I thought there was too much of that sort of like lower treble-ish sharpness. I don't
like the rest any part of it really. I feel like once you have the Harman curve, like low mids specifically, but you take away the bass shelf, it's just a thin sound.
But it's flat bass extension. At least the one that I evaluated was.
Yes, but that is not a shelf. That is flat bass extension.
I know, but that doesn't have the Harman contour. Or what do you use?
560S does.
Does it?
Yeah, it has a slight. It's damped, but it has a slight rise around FS, like, and it kind of hugs.
Oh no, I'm talking about like the dip and like the Harman dip at like 200 to 300.
It basically follows Harman in the mids exactly, except like between like 150 hertz to like 3K.
I don't remember
the only deviation. So it still has that dip. The only deviation is there's a little bit more 1K as well.
I don't remember. It definitely doesn't look like it has a dip. It doesn't seem to have the contour at around 200 hertz. At least the one that I measured doesn't. Neither does the clinical one.
So the one that you measured is one of the ones that makes people think there might be a silent revision. Because yeah, because it's much warmer than most of the other measurements that are coming.
The one that I measured
come out since.
Oh, maybe since, but the one that I measured is identical to the one Kryn measured.
Not like I'm looking at this.
S1, but not S2.
That there are no changes to sound. Whether that's true or not.
Wow, I mean, come on, I don't know what that. But no. Like, so here's what's going on, right? If you look at the one that I measured, and then you look at the one that Kryn measured, it's identical for the response. Like,
yes, but only the first one Kryn measured.
Yeah. So, okay. I'm looking at now the data from other sites, and it shows a stronger peak.
I'm pulling it.
So I don't know.
All right, if you want to look at the stream, you can look at the stream.
Yeah, I'm looking at both. So Kryn has 2 units here. One of them, the top one, sample 1 measures identically to the one that I had.
Yes,
sample
but Kryn
2
shows sample 2 measures first.
Oh, okay, that's why.
Really? And that is the result that is more perceptually relevant to me. Oh, actually, I just
with that like much stronger like 5K thing for sample 2. So I don't think this is a revision. It's just so there's 2 things going on here. One is actually the normalization for this looks a bit different between the 2 samples.
Yeah.
Right? There's more energy.
If you normalize by like dB, the first one Still basically just hugs Harman and then kind of like tapers off under 100 hertz. But then the other one is like significantly under Harman, under like 1K.
If you normalize, yeah, I get what you're saying. Interesting.
Yeah.
So what do we think here? Do we think this is just unit variation, or is there a revision, or one is just
given
worse?
the changes are mostly in the low frequencies? I'd say it's probably more likely unit variation. I mean, look at some of Oratory's data on, particularly at the low frequencies, the unit variation you can get. It's.
I would say that the issue is the high frequency stuff.
So here's what I'll say. I have on my database an average of a bunch of 560Ss measured on the 5128.
Someone's saying they changed the pads.
Oh, well, that'll do it.
I don't know
if that is the case.
But this
we
is
need to
it
get
on
a new
the
unit.
5128, and this is an average of everyone's measurements, including, I think, yours.
Yeah. I never measured on 5128.
Oh, okay, so then it's probably...
As far as I can tell, I don't remember measuring it. I just... Because that's a long time ago now. Yeah. We'll get a new one in.
We should.
Oh.
But yeah, it's just always sounded really thin to me in the mids. Obviously has that papery, kind of grainy treble in the 4K region. I mean, the rest of the treble isn't great for me either. But yeah, it's just... I don't really like that headphone. And the whole soundstage thing I never really understood either. Like, I don't really hear it as being significantly more spacious than something like an HD 600.
I
hear it as being less 3 blob, but only because it's like more 1 blob, where it's just like 1 blob right in front instead of like, left, right, center.
Yeah, no, I heard it significantly more spacious. But again, I don't know if that's the same revision that you heard. So, yeah.
If you still have that unit, feel free to send it my way.
I don't. It was DMS's unit. So DMS and I evaluated the same one, but it's not like they're hard to get. We'll get another one in.
We just took an objectivist detour in this Subjectivist challenge. Sorry about that, folks.
That's true. When there's a Subjectivist disagreement, we have to revert into.
Thankfully, we have things to fall back on. But
yeah,
really, we should just fight with
the database
instead of all that.
Yeah. So I have one in mind that I don't think anybody's going to get.
Okay.
So this is a headphone that is very comfortable. There's a headphone that has, I would say, somewhat of a, V-shaped kind of sound signature. I think we can say V-shaped.
Eris.
No, that's not
that
somewhat
was a good guess.
It's not somewhat of a V-shaped sound signature. That's a fun sound signature, otherwise known as bad. This one is so yeah, it's bassy, trebly, not unpleasantly so. I would say is pretty good for detail, or sense of detail. Pretty good for sense of spaciousness as well. It's a bit on the thicker side overall. It's got that thickness to it. Maybe
this isn't one of the Audio Quest headphones again, is it?
No.
Okay.
It's maybe a touch on the muddy side, but again, it's kind of balanced out reasonably well. I find, at least. The timbre presentation is slightly on the glassy side. I'm leading into the subjective language hard.
DCA Expanse?
No.
E3?
No, this is, again, very, very comfortable. It's reasonably lightweight. It's open back. It has it's more comfortable than clear. It has good accessories. The quality of the material for the pads is exceptionally good, especially for the price.
Harmonic Dyne Helios.
Nope.
Or Zeus.
Zeus.
There you go.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
The accessories for that were good.
One.
Any couple $100 headphone that comes in an actual briefcase that's a good sign.
I don't really recommend that headphone anymore, but for people who want V-shaped, I would recommend that.
Yeah.
generally for open back over a lot of the alternatives because it doesn't
Honestly,
mess
dude,
up the treble as much.
I think your review of that headphone is one of my favorite reviews of yours, and it's not because like I wanted to buy that headphone so much at the end of it. It's because I could tell you were in a place where like you understood the kind of person that would actually be good for.
Yep, because I love fun.
No, but like no, because like you were very real about the fact that like it is very comfortable. It did come with really good accessories. The technical performance was actually okay in terms of things like spaciousness and detail
and better
and stuff
than
like that.
the Helios, you know.
Yeah.
The Helios had that kind of scratchy, you know, Fidelio X2-ish kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, I feel like you gave Zeus like B's across the board, which like makes sense for that.
Yeah.
And is like basically the highest praise you can give for something that doesn't like work for you, you know, because you're not going to give like an A or an S to something that doesn't work.
That's an interesting question. Do you think that there's I feel like the EQ that I put together for the Eris kept it really V-shaped, but V-shaped in a way that I think is actually just so much better sounding overall. Like it keeps the strong bass and strong treble just not like horrible for both of those.
It's a lowercase V rather than an uppercase V.
Yeah, yes, exactly. I think V-shape would be great with a lowercase. Or I mean, there's so many different ways of doing it too, right? There are many different ways that you could achieve V-shape that is better than, like, it feels like to me the Eris, it's just the worst ways that you could do sound across the board.
I mean, like with V-shape, I like it if it's more of a sub bass lift rather than a mid bass only lift.
Yeah.
And also, you know, keeping some of the stuff that's in the middle of the V present to some degree.
Yeah, just there, but like not. Yeah.
Cameron, do you have another one?
Okay. Oh, actually, no, that won't work. Okay. Yeah. All right, I'll do this. Okay. So this one's overall, I'd say, a fairly neutral sort of presentation. It's quite detail forward. It's quite spacious sounding. Vocals are a little bit bright sometimes, but never sort of so much that it's like a problem. It's just that it's going for a little bit more of a spacious and airy presentation than other headphones might. But it does still have quite good sub bass control and tactility. Still got a nice tight and controlled sub bass. Its stage is ever so slightly sort of wider than it does frontally. Very comfortable, very lightweight.
Is this the R70X?
No. Separation and layering again,
headphone?
very, very good. No. Yeah, vocals overall are pretty good, just ever so slightly thin. Very detail-oriented headphone.
Sorry, this is an over-ear?
Yeah, over-ear headphone, open back.
Stax X9000.
No, it has bass.
Oh, it has bass. Oh, SR07s.
No, it's a planar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Separation and layering, excellent. No.
Aria Stealth.
No.
Aria. HE1000.
Yes.
Wait, Aria or HE1000?
Aria.
Yeah, Aria.
Aria, yeah. At this point, are they even making the original Aria anymore? I feel like it's like they got the Aria
I think
Stealth
V2 they still make, technically. Okay. V2 Stealth and Organic. Although they may have cancelled the V2 now, I don't know.
I mean, I like the Hi-Fi Man sound signature from a jazz, right? Because it's a bit brighter and it kind of balances that out. But what annoys me about that is there are so many different revisions, and a lot of it. So they went from the silver magnet bars to the black magnet bars. I believe that's actually a difference in the magnets themselves. So I think they're using ferrite magnets now. And for some reason, on some of the models, that resulted in very little change. And on other models, that resulted in a lot of change. And I don't think it's just the magnets. It's just that when they did that revision, it resulted in a different manufacturing process and not necessarily for the better across the board. And so and now we have situations where it's difficult to know with the black bar versions which ones are good, which ones are weird, you know. it's
Headphone
frustrating how
Man's had a
much.
bit of a weird history with revisions. I mean, because there's ones where like the new ones are just not as good. Like HE6. I mean, you did a video comparing the 3 different versions of the HE6.
Yeah, but I don't think that even the new versions of that are the same as the ones that I reviewed. You know.
No, I think there's new ones again now. And then the Aria, like they had a sort of silent revision to the Aria OG where they changed the mesh and stuff, and that one didn't seem to make any change. Then they went to V2 or something, which like at some point through that, it was a little unclear if that was a separate headphone or not. Yeah. Then they had the Stealth, which was definitely different and had different magnets, but it wasn't that different. It was like just a bit here and there. And then the Organic was completely different.
I know
I'm not up to date with all the HE1000s.
Different-ish. Yeah. I wouldn't say Organic was that like overall that different, just that it had that base contour.
Yeah, you know? It was the upper treble was the biggest thing for me. It was way more trebly. Yeah. I mean, because like Susvara Unveiled is remarkably similar in most respects,
and it's a totally different headphone.
like like completely different headphone, venting, driver, magnets, everything, and it's like, how is that more similar than the thing which is supposedly just had new magnets? So I don't know. Don't know what's
it is weird. It is weird. Yeah.
I do wish they would stop releasing new revisions of things quite so frequently, though.
Yeah.
Because it, as a consumer, makes it more confusing, and as a reviewer, makes it impossible to keep up with or give proper advice on. Because, like, I heard the one that they released 2 weeks ago, but I haven't heard the one that they released this week. So,
you could be doing your review on something, and then like they can release it. Yeah, and you're like, well, that's not the same as what I reviewed. You know, it's kind of frustrating. But hey, at least
they give them different names, though. Unlike
now,
when they used to. Which LCDX?
Yeah, I think headphones should just have model years. That way, it doesn't make manufacturers beholden to a specific production run where everything needs to be the same to that production run. You could have this is the 2024 edition or whatever, right? And that has a new production run, and you can make improvements more easily, like they do with cars.
Then if they haven't changed something between like 2021 and 2022. But then people start saying, "Oh, well, the 2021 one's better," and they stop selling.
No, but what I'm saying is they should. I mean, if you have enough volume, you can do that, right?
You can, but I don't want every manufacturer releasing a new version of every product every year. That would just be a mess.
And you may want, when it gets worse, you may want to hunt for the old ones still. It would suck if those.
That's what I mean. Like people will hunt for specific years. And manufacturers will feel pressured to put out new ones because otherwise people will.
Well, they could just the next year just re-release, go back to if they if there was a better one, or they could just keep them in stock and or keep producing them and just say this is the model that we created in 2023, right? And then just keep that in production.
I would just say like manufacturers just if you change something, just put a V2 or something on it. Like don't keep doing sort of. I mean, well, I think we had a chat with Taron about this, where if you said every revision of any sort has to have a new product name, then there would be thousands of product names for the stuff we have because manufacturers do change small things all the time, and it's sort of unavoidable. You can't get the same suppliers for every single part, or there's certain things due to a manufacturing process which need to be changed or whatever. Like it's not possible to have exactly the same headphone the whole time. But if you do intentionally change something
that I didn't talk about.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, we can keep going on this.
Go grab it.
Is it Freedom?
No, it's in a box actually. Of
course,
if I show it to you, it's going to look exactly like the old one. It was a revision to the Let's Short Cadenza 12.
Oh right,
So they just came out with the 2024 version, which I'm not going to spend long on this because honestly, they just made it like basically worse across the board. One of the things I really liked about Cadenza 12 was it had like a really like warm, thick, dense, heavy mid-range presentation to it. Like
Note
some
weight.
People would probably call it muddy, but like for but like actually like the note weight and sense of dynamic heft was like stellar on that IEM, and that's one of the things that they changed on the new one, and they basically just made it like flat low mids, so less fun, interesting, thick, cool. Rest of the ear gain rise is mostly the same, except now it has a little bit more 4K energy, which wouldn't have done that either. Adds a little bit of kind of a gritty
character to it, which I'm not a fan of, especially since it was already kind of gritty. They lowered the kind of 5-6K peak a little bit, which is a good change, but it's also just brighter in the upper treble. So that's also not good. I don't know. I really liked the Cadenza 12, and I thought it was like an underrated flagship IEM that no one talked about.
I talked about it because I said it was good.
You talked about it. You did like the only review I saw in like mainstream spaces of that IEM, and like it's kind of a shame because honestly, I would take that over like as a full package. I would take that over basically any other like flagship IEM, but now it's not really in production anymore. Yeah, and it was still too bright for me. Like it was still significantly way too bright for me, and I wouldn't buy it. But like, if I had to have,
I know what you mean.
It would be that one. Yeah.
All right.
Sorry. Do you guys want to move on from Subjectivist Challenge?
Yeah, I think we should. I think we should move on to Fight Club.
Fight Club.
Oh dear.
Okay, so the card is a truncated version. I'm going to read the full version, which is: how much money should a normal, meaning employed, not rich person spend on headphones?
$300.
Cameron?
I think it really depends on if this is your thing. Because the question is, like, are we asking this to our audience or to the average person that just wants a set of okay headphones?
Well, in the question, it does say normal person, which I think does imply not audiophile.
It depends also in which region in the world you're in, too, because the standards for what that is very different.
If we assume, like, UK, US, Canada, like, sort of that kind of thing, just make it easy. I would say normal person, get a set of AirPods Pros or something like that.
So that's the thing is, though, like the reason I say 300 is I keep hitting this. I'm sorry. I say 300 because it basically it opens up the door to so many different products that are genuinely great, like the AirPods Pro 2. You could do that, right? The HD 600, 6XX, 650s in that line, and you'd have still a little bit, depending on which one you get, for an amplifier if you go 6XX, if you really want to listen loud, or if you're using some shitty Realtek thing, right? The Odyssey Maxwell isn't that in that range?
Yeah.
So
I think so. It's like 300 or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like the point is that it basically allows you to get the good options that are in that. Like we could say a normal person shouldn't need to spend more than $100 on a pair of headphones because headphones are effectively an accessory device, right? That's just like, it's a thing that makes listening to music convenient and nice, right? But that, like, we are in the niche where people are like, I care about sound quality and like their sound quality, right? And for those people, they're already not normal. So, so in that respect, I think that for sound quality, I would say under $300 is a reasonable thing because it doesn't even need to be like, oh, I can afford this $300 pair of headphones, right? It's just that is a reasonable thing for people to aspire to own, right? That's
okay.
Yeah, like if you're an
Edition XS is in that. Sundara is in that, right? Sorry, go ahead.
Because if you're a normal person, this like audio is not your hobby or anything like that. I would say that like $300, it gets you various decent options depending on what your exact use case is. If you're an enthusiast, then it can be worth spending a lot more. In the same way that someone who normal employed person might say it's pretty reasonable for me to spend $2,000 on an espresso setup. For most people that just want a coffee in the morning, that's bonkers. You shouldn't do that. But some people spend way more on their car than they ever should. But the car's their thing, or whatever. I mean, just look at how much some people spend on car payments each month, honestly, and how much that could get you in any other hobby.
But that's a good comparison because I feel like when it comes to cars, I am your quintessentially normal person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The Metamucil of humans, just keeping it extra regular. And for me, that amount of money was something like $30,000, right? It reasonable for a normal person who is employed to spend $30,000 on a vehicle.
Yeah.
And I feel like the equivalent in headphones is like something around the $300 price mark. We could say 200, 300, whatever, depending on the region of the world. I don't think you need, because like, again, for the normals, this really is the thing.
Yeah.
And like, that's okay. If we're going to say, how much is this? Is this 200 or 300?
200.
But was it
Less
300
on
when it came
sale.
out?
No, I don't know.
Anyways, a device like this is what a normal person would consider. And I think, you know, it ticks all the boxes: the sound quality, convenience, form factor, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah,
Anything
I
more
would have
than
said. What?
So sorry, someone says anything more than $100 is a lot to a normal person.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're a normal person and you're just using your headphones for gaming, on the way to work, or walking your dog, normal person stuff. And again, to those people, sound quality does not matter at all. I even think the AirPods Pro 2 is expensive. Like a normal
if it's the kind of person
AirPods
that,
is.
if it's the kind of person that isn't caring about sound quality at all, though, then the answer is going to be even more different, which is that just buy something really cheap that works. Like if you want to be able
care
to
about
hear
things, people still care about things that aren't sound quality. And like if you spend more, you will get better. Like for example, you will get ANC in a different $100 true wireless earbud that isn't an AirPods Pro, and it will be more serviceable than a $5 ANC earbud. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I think Blaine's making a good point in the chat, which is that, to be honest, if we're thinking about, you know, what is the normal person spending, the fact that AirPods alone would be a Fortune 500 company kind of says that actually a lot of normal people are buying them.
Oh, actually,
So,
that raises a question. Is it the AirPods Pro that are the like giga popular one, or is it the AirPods
regular?
normal?
That's a good question, but I was going to say,
I would assume it's the regular
making
ones.
this suggestion is that is the naturalistic fallacy. Just because people are buying these doesn't mean necessarily that they should. But I think they should. Like I don't think
they should too. Like
yeah, I don't think
that's where
that's
spending more really stops
but
being an improvement.
So he thinks it's the regular AirPod. In that case, that kind of changes it, right? Because that's
that's closer to 100.
I'm just thinking
like
of this in terms of like the reason why I don't. This is not necessarily like a disagreement because like it's just a different interpretation of the question. I think because like you could say, what should we expect a normal person to spend in the same sense of like you shouldn't expect a normal person to regularly buy $50 bottles of wine, right? A normal person should spend, you know, $20 or $15, right, on a bottle of wine. And that should be good, right? We could make that. But at the same time, for the special occasion, what a normal person might also spend $50 on a bottle of wine, right? If you know, they're trying to impress somebody or whatever. Or if they're, whatever. And I think you can make a parallel there to say like, okay, we shouldn't expect a normal person to spend $300 on a headphone product or audio product. But spending $300 on an audio product like this, it might be aspirational, right? It might be something where
it's
people
attainable.
can say, and it's attainable, right? It's not like these like $3,000 headphones or, you know, whatever, or $1,000 headphones where it's like, you know, what, this is absurd, right? Even I mean, in the modern day, headphones are getting released that are like, you know, like this one. This is like what, $700? That's not attainable for a normal person, right? That's not. It might be at the like upper limits of aspirational for people who have a bit more money, but like I would not expect somebody to spend this kind of money on a pair of headphones. But this, I think it's attainable, as you said.
Yeah, I think $100 to $200 makes sense. I think once you get to 300, that is kind of what I would call the upper limit. Like 3 to 4 would be the upper limit of what a normal person would spend. But even that.
Sorry, I just found this for folks who are unaware. The apparently one of the PDPs that we have is using AI. one of the product pages for the Truthier Nova. So I just had
Oh my god, really?
shouted this out on Reddit, which is hilarious. So I just had to say that our YouTube channel is also AI because we're all robots.
We're hallucinating about soundstage.
Yeah. Yeah, no humans involved.
What is going on with the AI thing?
I don't know. I just saw that. I thought that was hilarious that there's a product page that has that has AI in it.
Weird.
To be clear, for folks who aren't aware, we know nothing about how those are put together. We're not involved in that at all. So
we don't actually sell stuff.
It would make sense to do though. Like I think that would.
Is it a product page or
yeah?
I think
so.
Like if it's a
no, I think it's a product page. Yeah.
If it's a product page, is there anything wrong with using AI? Like you would obviously don't AI a bloody review, but if it's a product description, that seems fine.
Except if it gets something wrong, right? Like there's
oh yeah, no, you need to proofread it, make sure it gets stuff right. I
did notice a typo, but wouldn't a typo mean human intervention?
Oh, apparently it makes mention of being true wireless when they're not.
I don't see.
Okay, well that should be corrected.
Embrace wireless freedom. Yeah, that's funny.
Okay, right, yeah, so that should be fixed. But
yeah,
that's really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So we are AI robots. For folks who didn't know.
Yeah, the AI is on that page. If you scroll to the reviews section and you look at the guy holding up a Nova and a variations, AI.
Yeah, all AI generated.
Unfortunately, there are some review sites that literally do all of their reviews with a healthy mixture of AI and plagiarism. But hey ho, so gotta be careful.
I thought you were going to say a mixture of AI and original content, but that was a
no. As far as I can tell, there's no original content besides the photos. So.
We haven't really fought that much on this Fight Club. Is there any do you have any because we're sort of all saying similar things. Do you have anything that is something that's gonna kick me in the shins or something on my take that $300 is a reasonable thing to be aspirational for a normal person?
No, I think
I think our framing of it, like the fact that we had to frame it within the Western affluent world, is a potential pain point.
Obviously I think the problem comes in when you define normal employed person, because that
it's really quite variable, right? Like
very variable. Do you mean a normal employed person living in central London, or a normal employed person living in middle of Tennessee, or in India, or in Luxembourg? It's going to vary a lot.
This is kind of the point. Like $300 is a lot. But the point there isn't that people should go spending $300 on their headphones. It's that is an attainable, aspirational thing. Like the products around $300, like the Maxwell, like the AirPods Pro 2, like the 600s, those are attainable things that a normal person could aspire to buy. I'm not saying that people should be spending that kind of money necessarily on their audio products. And a lot of that is also there are great audio products that are under $100, like in the IEM space as well. You can get a lot of good sound quality under $100, and that's totally reasonable, right? $20. Isn't there stuff from they don't make the Chew anymore, do they?
Maybe not. I mean, you can get
but I mean the Truthier has the Gate.
Okay, but those are
there's a good
There's
spicy
no worse
take
than the
here.
Chew.
Are they no worse?
They're better than
the Zeros.
No, the Gate.
Oh, the Gate. Okay, no, I didn't try that. Yeah, no, I thought you were talking about the Zeros. Zeros, I would.
It's just Harman. It's fine.
But but I'm talking about the shell. They don't fit. Maybe it fits in other people's ears.
It's fine.
But
it's the same shell as the Hola.
I would recommend the red. Sorry, go ahead, Cameron.
I was going to say, just to be very clear, we're not saying everyone should be able to go out and spend $300 on headphones. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that for the average level of employment person in the Western world, as we sort of defined earlier, $300 is a good balance of, yes, it's a lot of money, but it gets you a really good result, and there's not really much point to any normal person being going much further than that. But at the same time, it's attainable. It's a reasonable level of spending, but it's still a purchase you have to think about. We're not saying that, $300, just blow it away.
I just don't know what a normal person is.
That's fair.
I look at the mirror and struggle with this every day. What is normal?
Blaine says, I want Spicy Hour 2. Should audio sites use AI?
I don't know.
I don't think that's...
Well, there was a spicy take up top from Stephen McTow, which said sometimes AI would do better reviews than some humans.
I don't know that that's true. Sometimes maybe. Yeah, I could see a scenario where an AI would do better than, but across the board better. I don't know that.
I mean, part of the problem with the AI thing, especially when it comes to reviews, is that you have to remember that AI it's trained off existing stuff. It's not actually creating new, feedback and information. And so, if the AI is doing a review, even assuming that you could feed in some basic feedback into it, say like, I think it has a big sound station, it's detailed, write a post based on that, like give it some steer. It's still just copying existing reviews, and that's part of the problem. But then I guess the question is a regurgitated, slightly sort of plagiarized review better than a completely misleading or incorrect or almost maliciously done review in some way? Because some review providers are.
This is Blaine's take. If you fed AI FRs, I think it would beat the median Headphone review. That could be true.
That's an interesting look on it, actually. I mean, there's...
Do you know that AI can unpack frequency response like that, though?
Well, you can give it... I mean, look at the new GPT model and stuff, which actually does, like... It's not just a normal transformer. It actually does sort of several steps of thinking, which is what's allowed it to, like, code new stuff and spell strawberry correctly.
I guess you would have to feed it, like, the FR data and then probably target data, and then, like... They would have to be normalized before it, and then it would just base it on numerical values or something like that.
And there is a world where, in future, we do a sort of, not even necessarily AI, but just plain old machine learning sort of thing with people giving feedback based on different curves. And eventually it gets to a point where you can feed a frequency response measurement into this, and it'll tell you, this is how most people are going to describe it subjectively.
I think that there is truth to that. However, I still think you need to put it on a human. I think you, like, at some level, you need to have a human being who has listened to this and given a report.
Oh, no, I agree. I wouldn't look at a review myself that didn't have that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't read through an all AI-enabled review. I'm just saying that I don't think that AI or machine learning-driven reviews are necessarily inherently pointless, and that with some more specific training, they could actually be a useful tool. Like that frequency response subjectivity prediction thing could actually be something that's helpful. It's just that it would take an enormous amount of work to actually get all the data needed to do that.
Yeah, I still think... Okay, so here's... And this is partially me sort of steel manning the opposing viewpoint, because I agree that I actually think, especially with Blaine's point, that you would actually get a better result than most Headphone reviews. But there is also an argument that given how substantially, HBTF variation affects this stuff, if you had some way of gleaning intelligibility out of the purely subjective language that exists in some of these subjective reports, right? So just purely subjective reviews on things. That bit would be missing from a AI-based review, because it would be just based on whatever you fed it in terms of frequency response and whatever targets you might use, right? And that completely discounts the variation that would happen across different heads, potentially.
Yeah.
So that, again, I agree.
Well, technically, so does a human.
So does a human, but at least a human gives gives a subjective report of one in situ use condition. And that's the thing that would be missing, right? So again, part of this is the actual in situ variation and the in situ based report that would be a requirement. The other is some sort of indication of what the Frank Jackson knowledge is for some person, right? Where you wouldn't get that necessarily with an AI based review. But as far as the overall, like, it being fed a set of data, you would, how that might and not for every headphone maybe, but like that's probably going to lead to in aggregate a more tangible, realistic result than what random people on Headphone are saying.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I think that then we almost come back to the question of sort of this sounds like weird wording, but like what makes someone ideal to be a reviewer, and in terms of general consumers providing feedback on Headphone, particularly if it's something they've saved up for, spent a lot of money on, how that influences things, what they also might have tried. Like you can argue that an AI is going to have tried you know what I mean, thousands of products, and so like that alone has a benefit over the person that sort of spent loads of money on something and so is singing its praises because they kind of have to justify their purchase. But then it's like, well, what about a person that does just do reviews and has it's tricky. I don't know.
There's like there's the idealized scenario, and then there's the in practice scenario, and like both of those need to kind of be like assessed independently, because and then the judgment should be made around that. Because like I would actually think that like as much as we kind of like rag on the pure insanity of impressions at trade shows and stuff like that, I still find it interesting, like how
there's a reason you go.
Yeah, well, but even just talking to people who like they'll talk about stuff like they're getting impressions, they're like, okay, that like how is this tolerable to you, right?
Yes.
That's always interesting to me, because some people be like, oh my god, it has this amazing ethereal quality or whatever, right? And it's like, we are hearing this very differently. And that's not influenced as much. I mean, it's influenced by other things, right? It's less influenced by some of the confirmation purchase justification stuff that exists with the copium treadmills, because people are just there having those experiences. So I still think that that's interesting. And
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
the times when you are at shows and stuff and you meet someone and they've got such a different take on a product, you're like, I mean, I know it's noisy, but that doesn't explain how the Mount Bayer or whatever went away suddenly. So.
Well, but a good example is like the Rala Manus, right? Or was it the Magna? Right? We heard it very differently from how other people were hearing it.
How did you guys hear it?
I don't like the Magna at all, really. There's something I can't remember exactly what now because it's been a while, but there was just something weird about the timbre on that I did not like. And Max was good overall. Like I liked it. I wasn't like blown away or anything. There's something in the treble which is not quite sitting right with me. Not to any intolerable degree, but just it was enough that it threw off certain vocals and instruments and made them a little bit sharp. And then the bass profile was a little bit too mid-bassy, I think.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to say too much because I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that like, hey, there's a scenario where like this was being run from it's really low low electrical impedance, right? Like it's next to no. Is it like these other ones?
I don't know how hard, they seem a little bit easier to drive than the previous stuff, but like the SR1B and CA1A are some of the hardest to drive headphones.
Yes, but they also have
voltage and current. They go through a transformer, but they will. Yeah, you have to put them through a transformer box because they have like a 0.01 ohm impedance or something.
Yeah.
But they genuinely will pull like 5-6 watts RMS from your amp at times.
Okay, so I just want to say like we didn't hear them. We heard them at a show being demoed off of, and like they were the ones who actually did the setup. I saw Alexander there doing the setup for the units that we heard. But I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say like, okay, maybe there's an idealized scenario that we didn't get to try. So I don't know that my impressions of
we haven't given them a proper evaluation.
Yeah,
we would like to, and I think they said they were going to send you a pair, didn't they?
No, just that we were to listen to it in like their dedicated environment, which we never got a chance to do. So maybe at the CanJam show we will. But I think like I don't know. They were saying that they'd rather have Oratory evaluate it because they felt they didn't want us to have a conflict of interest. And I'm like, well, fine. He's welcome to do it. That's less work for me. Our results will agree. We use the same equipment, so I mean, he doesn't use the 512A.
I don't know how you could.
Oh, never mind.
I feel like people don't quite understand how measurements work, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. We've no, go ahead.
I was just going to give my take on that.
Please.
It's the kind of thing where from what I heard, right, it was the kind of thing that, when you listen to something and like within the first 30 seconds, you can tell if there's something wonky in the treble. It triggered that for me. It was like that. Like immediately I was like, so overall I've heard significantly worse things. It wasn't like something that was like horrible, but I could tell right away. I was like, there's something that in the treble that is not quite right for me. So
where I ended up was that like I like them. I think they're good headphones. It's just that there was a fair few people that sort of thought that they were, the best headphones ever made, and were like therefore taking anything not positive being said as obscenely negative or something. Like we were saying that they were terrible or bad, which we weren't. I like them. I wasn't blown away by them. That's all. They are perfectly good headphones. I just personally don't think I would pay that much for them, but I've not tried them at home yet. So
on this subject, let's not get spicy hour going here, guys, because this is starting to get into a spicy conversation.
Give us some spicy takes.
One thing with the Imanis though too that I think it's difficult because like, I mean, I talk a lot about Gettier cases. This is potentially another one, but it's a headphone that costs $10,000. So you have the elephant in the room there being, even if it is the most amazing sounding headphone in the world, even if it's the best thing across the board and what everybody's saying about it is correct and we're wrong, right? Fine. The problem is that it's a $10,000 headphone, which means that it's very difficult to say this people are having this experience genuinely, or that people are having this experience primed by the fact that it's a $10,000 headphone, and that's what's contributive to the positive.
Or primed by the existing feedback to some degree as well, like that.
Well, that too, if people are reading about it. But I'm just saying, like, people go even if you go to an audio show, right? And there's a $10,000 headphone. I mean, people have the same thing with the HE1. It's a $60,000 thing. Most people are.
We're gonna get spicy about the HE1.
Yeah, and here's a good example. Griffin doesn't like it, right?
Mid.
So he's
Super
not.
mid.
So he's not, price pilled by this, right? Or what? I don't know what the kids are saying.
I mean, there's an argument that I'm anti-price pilled.
Yes.
Like there's an argument that the price biases me negatively.
In the other way, yeah, I get what you're saying, but like, the point is more that
it's just mid.
The point is more that like, because these things are so expensive, it's almost impossible to like evaluate them. It's impossible to take any judgments or evaluations of them at face value, because that's a massive elephant in the room. If these products had the same performance and cost $500 or even $1,000, then that wouldn't be a sort of like, up the flagpole claim to fame about any of this stuff. And we would have, I think, more even keel judgments about them across the board. But again, it's impossible to know, because
I mean, there's headphones that you and I like the Susvara, which I think same thing goes. There are a lot of people that sort of make, I'd say, exaggerated statements about how much better Susvara is than HE1000, for example, that I don't think are true because it's like, $6,000 or whatever. It's, I like that headphone. I do think it's better, but you see some hyperbolic statements quite a lot. And it's like, you don't just want to sort of jump in and argue with someone over like how much you agree or disagree with what they're saying or something, especially if it's not, you know what I mean? But it's, at the same time, it's like, you just want to tell people to chill sometimes.
but I get that it's difficult, because it is. If you've had an experience where you genuinely are over the moon with something and somebody else is telling you like, hey, that's just your placebo because it costs a lot of money, even if it is, that sucks. That's like a shitty feeling, and people are, I think understandably going to get fired up about it. So I don't really begrudge people for their enthusiasm. I feel it's a difficult thing to get a accurate read on. So I had another spicy thing here we can move to while we still got you. And get the peppers in the chat, guys, for our spicy
I
takes
see
here.
one, but you go first.
Yeah. So, did anybody follow the reviewer who reviewed the thing with where the reviewer reviewed the $4,000 cable and said that it made a difference and referenced the Kuncher article?
Oh, the Kuncher one.
Yeah.
I've read the Kuncher paper,
but
yeah.
It is that thing where it's like anytime a cable proponent...
What is the Kuncher paper?
Cameron,
so basically, he does. So, for those who don't know, we talk about how sort of cables don't make a difference and stuff. There are situations relating to very, very like RF, gigahertz range, high frequency stuff, where it does matter. This is why like USB, AES, SPDIF cables all have a specific what's called characteristic impedance. If that's not correct, you can get reflections which do affect the signal integrity itself. The thing is that this is that stuff so far outside the audible spectrum that for a normal analog XLR cable or whatever, or a headphone cable, it doesn't matter. This is specifically related to like megahertz range stuff.
Yes,
and effectively
way outside of our hearing range.
Yeah, and so Kuncher basically measured a bunch of like analog cables, showing that they do some different stuff in the multiple megahertz ranges, and went, "See, cables are different." It's like, well, yeah, we know this. Like that, this isn't actually anything new. Anyone could have predicted that this would have happened because people don't design analog cables with specific characteristic impedances because it doesn't make a difference. All of the differences shown were at timing and frequencies way outside what would ever come out of a DAC. Like, remember, even if you want something that's accurate, your DAC will never output something at that frequency. So unless you're particularly interested in accurately recreating the switching noise from something, it's not a problem. So basically he showed that cables make a difference in a way which everyone in the high-speed electronics industry already knew, which is why cables are made with specific characteristic impedances, then tried to relate it to analog audio cables, even though that doesn't make sense to do so. That's the gist.
Got it. So the person you're talking about, Andrew.
Yes. So I don't want to, this isn't throwing shade to this person necessarily. Well, maybe a little bit, but just on this topic.
This is throwing shade to this person.
This topic specifically, the cable thing, right?
Okay.
Some of the justification was to do with the Kuncher paper, to say that, there haven't been any like actual there hasn't been actual research published on cables making a difference, like as far as like blind test is concerned, and then B, reference the Kuncher research on this same topic.
Can I just interject with something which I like to let people know about, because I think it's a particularly sort of apt thing when people say like, there hasn't been blind tests and stuff. The James Randi Foundation, which if you don't know who James Randi is, go and watch the documentary An Honest Liar. It's brilliant. He had a foundation with $1 million prize outstanding to anyone that was able to demonstrate supernatural abilities. He made a career out of basically exposing like faith healers and psychics and stuff like this. Right. But he also opened this up to audiophiles. He said, if you have two cables, like speaker cables, that you can hear a difference between and show that in a blind test, I will give you $1 million. No one was ever able to claim it. So the fact that there was $1 million on the table and no one could claim it speaks volumes. There was one company that wanted to do it, but then backed out when they said, okay, well, we need to also open the cables up after to check that you've not got a cheat device inside it. And then they went, oh, no, actually, we're not going to do it. But yeah.
Now, does this have to be with their cable? Because no. I bet okay.
No,
so
they just said supernatural. So it's open-end. Like as long as it's doesn't have anything outside the bounds of, what would be considered broken or whatever. It's
okay.
Fine.
But I feel like with headphones, I feel like we could actually get the $1 million.
Speakers now.
But with headphones, we could get the $1 million because you just
need to with headphones because with headphones, if you're talking about really low impedance stuff, but then it wouldn't be supernatural because then there is an actual explanation as to why it's happening. He's talking about
something where there's no actual explanation for.
That's the point. Yeah, it was to demonstrate supernatural abilities. So
right. Okay, but I think that's slightly adjacent to the point. I think that's slightly adjacent to the point about Kuncher and because they or your camera did the thing again. Yeah, they're doing. So yeah, like the thing that kind of gets me with this is that like there are tangible scenarios, as we just mentioned, where people would be able to, where there is a difference in cable. Like there are tangible differences where you will measure a product with two different cables and the frequency response will be different. And that is because they have, it's like those IEMs that have like two
but there's a
ohm
reason
impedance,
for it. So
right?
it's-
And that, yeah. So when there are these sort of sensational things that sensational claims about cables that get made, where it is actually very possible that people did hear a tangible difference in those cables, not attributing it to the very real acoustic properties that would result in measurable change, and instead attributing it to some
Magic.
quality I don't know what, right, or some unmeasured physical thing, is doing a disservice to the entire discourse on this topic.
Yep.
Anyways, that's the spicy take from me. That's going.
Mike,
Yeah, I would say we
Mike
should get into other people's spicy takes
saying,
now.
I'm a hypersonic 100 kilohertz frequency enjoyer. I need more 4K cables. 100,000 hertz is still too low for the characteristic impedance to make a difference.
100,000 hertz.
I know he's memeing. 100,000. Yeah, 100,000 hertz. Like 100. We're talking about stuff at like dozens of megahertz. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like USB, I think 480 megahertz. So.
Yeah.
Hado says headphone companies have no incentive to improve the tuning and comfort of their products because the vast majority of consumers have no ear training and won't care if they sound bad. I would say within this group that is a cold take, not a hot take.
No, hold on.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Raycons are so popular should say that that's the truth.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a cold take.
He's basically saying manufacturers don't need to bother to make things good because like general consumers don't.
They'll sell anyway.
Okay, but why not? I mean, that's true, but why not improve ergonomics?
Because again, people don't care. People will suffer.
But do we think that people who like, we know that people don't actually care about sound quality nearly as much as they care
as
about
much as they think?
Yeah, well, or as much as other things, right? Other things are far more influential in terms of whether, well, not far more. Other things are influential in terms of what actually motivates people to buy headphones. But certainly, comfort has to be one of key ones, right? If companies are regularly making torture devices, you would think that people would get upset about that, and then companies would be incentivized.
That's kind of where we already are, though.
I know. So my point is more that I don't know if that's the companies don't have an incentive, or they don't have an incentive, but that's not to say that they shouldn't improve this, right? They don't have incentive because people are still doing stupid things with their money. That's what it comes down to.
The person saying that agrees with that, but they just know there is no actual incentive for them to make that change. Rob
Blaine
Hawk says,
has made an AI review.
Yeah.
Check the Discord.
Oh God, I don't want it. No.
I hate that.
Is it a comment in chat? Can I delete it?
No, well, he did a comment as well, but he's saying this review is better than 90% of Headphone reviews.
I believe it.
Yeah, it's easy. Rob Hawk says, radical acousticism forces the artist to make it sound exactly as you intended.
What?
Dude.
Is this a spicy take, or like I don't understand?
No, Rob just wants us to pause for a second and think.
Mission accomplished.
It, Rob.
Porta-Pro wireless equals all of the hair pulling with none of the hassle of a tangled cord.
True. And I really disliked the Porta-Pro cable. So win for me.
An audio gear seller I know couldn't find consistent differences in blind tests with expensive cables. He argues that blind tests are worthless because when seeing the cable, one can hear the difference.
Based. Hell yeah.
No, I kind of like that. It's like biting the bullet on like cited biases. You're like, yeah, cited biases are what counts. Yeah.
Cited biases are why I make
to some degree, there's merit to that in a way. Like, if a difference only exists in a cited test, it's technically still a difference. It's just that it's in your head.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like it's
that's a great
yeah, thanks, I hate it. Like...
yeah. All right. JBL makes shit sounding stuff as well with all the understanding in the world at their disposal. Are they saving better things for new product launches? it's interesting because I was just thinking about this in regards to, I think Sean actually just recently did a shout out of the Sound Guys review of the JBL earbud. I think it's $300. Again, normal people, $300. No, but the I forget the name of the product, but it's the $300 JBL TWS. And Sound Guys gave it a quite glowing review, like a 9 out of 10 or something like that. And they looked at the frequency response, and this is where, like, again, Sound Guys got to the right target for the wrong reasons, but the target is reasonable, right? And yeah, the JBL thing looks like it measures like Harman. It has the peak at like 5-6K or wherever that is, and it has a little bit of the dip there in the mids, and my feeling is that this is, like, if we're talking about the TWS products, to get to this spicy take here, I don't think that if we say basically it's an outlier and they made some methodological errors and that's why the result is what it is, it's not that there's no, there's basically a reasonable explanation for why they ended up making products that sound like shit. But we also know that they don't sound like shit to everybody. They sound like shit to some people. And so I feel like it's not, like, part of me, and let me know if you guys disagree with this, but part of me feels they're better off making products with research behind it, even if there are scrungles with the research, rather than trying to do things that just sound good to people. You know what I mean?
Like, there's have the information.
There's a anchor there, or grounding there, right? Even if it's not quite right, like, there's something there that is, underpinning it, and I like that about it. So that's the one thing.
It is weird, though, that they don't seem to utilize their own research as much as they otherwise could.
Well, the flip side is that they also make amazing stuff, like the JBL 306P Mark IIs, right?
Yeah.
So, like, you can't. I feel like,
I mean, to be fair, the speaker research they're drawing on is the best of the three,
stuff, right? So, like, I feel like you can't paint them with the same brush just because the IM stuff doesn't do that well, right? I don't know about the over ears, though. I have not evaluated nearly enough JBL over ears, so I need to maybe, because that should also be Harman too, right? So,
yes,
anyway.
ish. Like, they're usually Harman with actually extra treble.
Oh, really?
And extra bass.
So even right, because it's going after a younger audience who wants even more V-shaped, right? For some reason.
For most of them,
yeah.
Kind of like the Mark Levinson's extra treble.
Oof. It was like the only thing that sucked. There's a few things that sucked about it, but that in particular. Oh, here we go. Sennheiser hasn't made anything good since Axel Grell left the company.
It's a cold take, but also it's like they made plenty of bad stuff when he was at the company too.
The HD820.
And the HD490 Pro isn't the same Sennheiser they're probably talking about, but I wouldn't necessarily call it like a great headphone. It's not a 6 series or an 800 or something, but it's a fair step forward for their lineup of pro open headphones.
Here's a question for you.
What's up?
You know how people like the DT990 and 770 and like the Bayer stuff, right? That has the extra, stuff.
Yeah, I would say it absolutely destroys those.
Right. So, do you think there are many people who prefer those over the 6XX, right? The sort of more mid-rangey kind of sound. For those people, do you think it's a great product? It's the 490 Pro.
Yeah, I mean, so
I would agree.
That's the thing. This is kind of what I said earlier when I said you wouldn't rank something above B when it doesn't work for you. Like B is like the highest grade I can give something when I'm not getting personal enjoyment.
Oh, but I didn't. I mean, like, this is where I didn't care as, like, yeah, I would agree. It's a B tier headphone. I gave it a B. But
how did you? Yeah.
But for my the way I use it, it's an A because
B isn't great to me though. Like A is great.
Yeah, no, but this is the thing: is I put it in A for myself because you know how I use headphones.
Yes, I do.
And the
Yeah.
platform is
And
so
certain
good
parts
that-
of it are not only B tier but S tier. It's just the
Yes.
sound isn't one of those things in my
isn't
opinion.
one of those things. Exactly. Yeah. Let's do a couple more peppers here, guys. Looks are more important than people like to admit. There's more
Hold take. Oh, he's put ice
IEM
cubes on
/ headphones that I like how they sound than those I like the look of. Oh, interesting. I wasn't thinking like IEMs to me are like some when IEMs have wacky designs visually, I find that not as offensive as like when over your headphones too, because they're smaller, right? But it is like we were saying, like, you know, the Kiwi having the Kiwi ears logo on a shell is annoying. I wish that it didn't say that. Like even something as innocuous as like the Truthier Hexa, it would be better categorically if it didn't say Truthier on it, right?
The design?
Yeah,
That's actually one where I think I do like the text. It's the rare IEM where I actually do like the text. Actually, I can't think of another IEM where I like the text on it. Actually,
okay, but take the IEM designs that you don't like, the visual aesthetic. Like, okay, do you like the look of the Storm?
No.
Yeah, so that's a good example.
I liked the look of the new one that everyone on Headfi hated.
Oh. I'm not sure which one I listened to.
You've seen the original one.
But compare that. It's an out there kind of design, right? Compare that to like this. Which one would you be more okay with wearing in a Zoom meeting?
Cosmo. Actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I disagree. This is going to draw.
I don't mind the texture of that. Just the headband is weird.
The headband is so.
Yeah, the floaty headbands do look a little bit silly on
really stupid.
meetings.
Look like a Cyberman.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because I find them way more comfortable. But yeah,
with an IEM, even if it's something as like, let's say, potentially gaudy, if you find it that way,
just because it's smaller.
It's so much smaller, and nobody's going to notice. Yeah, nobody's going to see it. So, you know. All right. Grell hasn't made anything worth existing post Sennheiser.
So, here's what I'll say about that. His headphones have been mid. His one IEM attempt, the true wireless IEM, was ruined by its ergonomics. Sonically, it was actually, I would even say, good.
Oh, interesting.
Not just solid. It was good. But
what do you guys?
Yeah.
What do you guys think about bone conduction? What do you guys think about bone conductor drivers and IEMs? Are these just marketing stuff, or do they have a unique impact on sound quality? I don't like them.
I mean, it depends on the implementation. I find the springy, rattly sound of them annoying.
I don't like them
as
at
a
all.
UX thing. Yeah. I would advise against it.
Did really like them on the Mest Mark II specifically. I found that it gave, like, it was one of the only IEMs that I didn't have a completely inside my head spatial presentation.
When Apple makes an ANC wireless headphone that is tuned as good as the AirPods Pro 2, then a lot of the audiophiles will quit the hobby. So we were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true, but I think, as what we were saying earlier, it would just make it so that there's no point to many of these products now.
Yeah, we were talking about this privately, not in the stream.
Yeah, but if Apple made something like competent, like well-tuned, good ergonomics, like for over ears, right? If it was well-tuned, good ergonomics, had the ANC, but also had the compensation, right, for leakage, there would be no point to close back headphones. That's just a close back headphone that you buy now. Like it would have spatial stuff as well, right? Like, so a lot of this stuff would be pointless if they were able to release that. But I don't know that it would kill the audiophile industry, because I think
it wouldn't kill the market segment or anything.
Yeah.
Like people would still have their technicalities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there is a sense in which the AirPods Pro 2 has made it so that many IEMs are effectively pointless, but it has not actually killed the market for high-end IEM still exists. So it might make it so that it it might make an impact, right? It'd probably put a dent in it and affect it, but I don't know that it would go away.
Mike Mabike says audio hasn't really improved since the 90s. Eddie-Modic for IEMs, ATC for speakers, and Sennheiser headphones. Okay, the first two, I'm going to go ahead and just say no. Jeez. The obvious improvement there is that bass is good, actually. And Eddie-Modics don't really have that. And ATC for speakers, I mean, the only ATCs I've heard were very mid-rangey, and I didn't get the sense that they would be like feasible in like many rooms a person would traditionally work within, especially without subs. Yeah, they're very cool looking. I like the way they look, and the vibe is good, but very good speakers came out after the 90s.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure like most of the ones that are actually good and in line with what the research has told us is.
When did Genelec start like catching on? I don't know much about the history.
I would figure sometime in the early 2000s, but it's probably even earlier, and I just am not aware. Blaine could fill that in.
Etymotic being the pinnacle of IEMs is that's a spicy take.
Yeah.
I'm just going to briefly read Blaine's take and then say no. After playing with ChatGPT for a bit, I think we should use this for reviews. Nope.
Yeah, I don't want to be complicit in the kind of like the mill of theft inherent to that.
Yeah.
I'm already annoyed that we can't opt out from our stuff being used to train AIs.
Audiophiles don't want good sound; they want to be special. I think they think that they're getting good sound as a function of wanting to be special.
That's a good take. I like that take.
Weed can make bad headphones sound good. Yeah.
I think that's
Focal and Odyssey isn't as competitive as Sennheiser and Hi-Fi Man. Interesting.
Disagree on that.
Interesting.
They've all got good and bad products and are all offering different flavors.
It depends on which one you mean, right? Like, because like Sennheiser does the range of amazing to like the worst thing of all time.
Yes.
And Focal, I suppose.
Are they talking about like the size of companies in that like Sennheiser and Hi-Fi Man are probably two biggest competitors, and Focal and Hi-Fi Man are like biggest like smaller competitors, or are they talking about like the products not being as good?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, like, there's so many different ways to interpret that, right? I like also you got the Odyssey Maxwell, which is like the most competitive headphone.
Yeah,
so it's hard to
literally and in multiple ways. But honestly, I would say, unfortunately, I don't really find any of the things they're doing right now competitive.
Which ones? Which one is this? Sorry.
Any of the products that are like new from the brands they just mentioned. But I also haven't heard Audini's and Azuris. But
I liked the I can never remember which is which. I like the open one. This one wasn't as good as the closed one. Yeah, that's the one.
You won't like this at all, Griffin. It has that timbre shift that it has 10. No, actually, it's quite relaxed.
They don't though.
Yeah, no, it is quite relaxed.
Yeah, that's kind of why I want to hear them.
I don't think you like it because I think it does a little bit of the the dark bright, right, where they have the relaxed kind of like mid treble, but then a little bit of the 8K or whatever. I wouldn't say this is as dark. It's not like an Alere, right? But this combined with that 3.7, 3.5K kind of like timbre shift thing is what might put you off on this. But for me, it's like it's pretty easy to get used to that. Like I would recommend this without EQ to people. I EQ it though, right? That's what I shift over. So we really do need to end this because otherwise this won't be pulled by the
podcasting
stuff. Yeah.
All right.
So
well, we can go ahead and end it then.
Yeah. Do you want to do you want to take us out?
No, you can do it. I'm gonna make sure that
as usual, guys. As once again, all this is made possible by headphones.com. If you liked any of this, or if you hated this, consider headphones.com for your next audio purchase. it allows us to continue to eat and be healthy and exist. And also we have cables. Shout outs to Listen More Cables. I think there's some DACs and amps on there as well, and headphones, as the name implies.
365-day return policies you can buy with confidence.
All of that. I think that's it. Anything else?
Thanks for everyone for hanging out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks to you two for hanging out. This is fun.
Yeah, always fun. Always fun.
Yeah.
All right. Bye. All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.